All right. What up, everybody? Welcome to the 14th episode of the Glitched Out podcast. I hope you guys have been a great day. Welcome, everybody. Everybody have a blessed first of the year upcoming. We have the pleasure of having the one and only Juan Paulo from Empires Apart. We have Elliot, the one and only from Prismata, and the homie Resonance, aka I call him Resonance all the time. He used to work with Outpost Games, so we're lucky to have these people. If you guys want an insight on creating games, anything to do with the industry, this is a place to be. I appreciate everybody being here today. Let's do it. But little intro. We'll start with Elliot. Tell the people a little about yourself. Then we'll go to Juan Paulo and then Resonance.
All right, so I'm Elliot. I am the founding member, and I run a company called Lunark Studios. We make a strategy game called Prismata.
All right, nice. And Juan Paulo, on to you.
I'm Giampaolo Vernocchi. I'm from Italy. I co-founded a company called Destiny Bit, and we're working on a real-time strategy game called Empires Apart.
Nice. And the one and only Resonance. What about you, man? Tell the people about yourself.
Okay, so one last thing. I'm actually formerly at Outpost Games. I am no longer with that company as of mid-November. It came as a bit of a surprise to me. So I'm currently looking for work and really any available opportunities, but I'm going to be a little bit picky about the companies that I choose. I'm hoping to snag a job at a game that I'm like super passionate about. That's the dream. But a little bit about myself. I'm mostly known for starting the first ever Age of Empires 2 YouTube channel back in 2009. I've been a Twitch partner for 3 years, streaming for 4. I consider myself a variety streamer, but I mostly stream Age of Empires 2. And most of my work experience is at Forgotten Empires, the development team behind Age of Empires 2 HD Edition. They do all the not programming, so they do all the game design, content balance, and whatnot. So I've been very heavily involved with balance, QA, community management. I was their QA lead for a while, community manager for a while. I managed a Hearthstone team at Escape Gaming for some time. And right now I'm currently just streaming full-time in the meantime while I'm figuring out my life. Basically, community management and game design are my passions. I'm a big fan of Age of Empires, Kirby, and Pokemon, and a lot of other things I'm going to leave out. And of course, I'm a huge fan of indie games, which is why I'm here today. And also a fan of GlitchSythe, of course, too. And why I brought on Elliot Grant and Giampaolo Vernocchi, because I thought this would make a really interesting podcast.
Nice. All right. So let's move on to the first entree for the podcast. We're going to be going and talking about Empires Apart, boys and girls. Now, Empires Apart is going to be available on PC, Mac. They're using the Unreal Engine 4. And the developers for this game is Destiny Bit. Publisher is Slithering. And their ETA for this game is projected the first quarter of 2018. If you want to know about this game, a little synopsis about this game. Empires Apart is a historical real-time strategy RTS indie game. So if you like Age of Empires or StarCraft, this game is right up your alley. So I'll let the one and only Juan Paulo take this away. So tell us a little bit about your game, man.
So thank you for the intro. Empires Apart is the product of frustration of the market not providing me with anything to play. Damn it! We were all a fan of strategy games, especially real-time strategy game, and especially old school ones.
Mm-hmm.
And there hasn't been one in a lot of time, and now there seems to be like a huge resurgence. But 3 years ago, that wasn't the case. And Empires Apart is a product of that. It's a product of wanting to bring back the old school feel of RTS. The collecting of resources, the producing units and sending them to your opponent and playing with your friends. A lot of stuff that, it all seems, oh yeah, absolutely, that should how an RTS should be. But strategy games sort of like took another direction, and they started to try to simplify everything and try to distill it to the point where some people don't even call them RTS anymore.
Okay.
And Empires Apart is set in medieval times, very much inspired by Age of Empires 2, Stronghold, Empire Earth, those kind of games. It's been in development for about 3 years now. It started as super ultra small game made by just 2 people. And when we decided to make this game, we started to approach a lot of YouTubers, a lot of personalities in the Age of Empires 2 community, which back then was smaller than it is today, just to ask, okay, guys, what games do you want to play? Because we do have an idea of what this game should be, what this game should be for you, and what it's particular about this game compared to, say, any off-the-shelf game you might find at Target or GameStop or whatever. Is that this game is being developed with the open development philosophy. We stream development twice a week. We're always active on Discord, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, everything. We try to keep it as much open as possible when it comes to everything we do. So, hey guys, this is new in the game. Hey guys, we were thinking about this. What do you guys think? And stuff like that. So it's the product of our work as well as the work of our community in a way. It's a game developed by not only our team but also everybody that follows the project. So it's slated for release first quarter of the next year, like you said, for PC. And we've been fortunate enough to partner with Slytherin, that is helping us publish the game and make it a reality. And it's the game that we wanted to play, and we hope that people feel the same way as well.
All right, perfect. Do you mind if we run a quick trailer so the people in chat could definitely see, and people tuned in could definitely see what we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Right, cool.
If I can give just a little introduction to the trailer, I'm not sure what you're going to show, but there hasn't been any proper trailer in 2.5 years, and we will release one fairly soon, and we will start to produce a lot more footage about what the game looks like right now. If you go into the internet, you might find a lot of old footage, a lot of old screenshots. That's what open development does. So keep in mind that there's a work in progress, and whatever you're going to see, it's probably different today, and it's probably going to be different tomorrow. So
yeah, the video we're playing is your announcement trailer, your pre-alpha footage.
Perfect. Take it away.
All right, let's do it. I've supplied you guys with links so you guys can see it. I can count down, or you guys can just watch it on the stream and let me know when you guys are ready. All right, 3, 2, 1, vámonos. I like the music. I like the music a lot.
Thank you. We always say
I do too, by the way. I gotta give props to the music, man.
Yes, this theme, this is what is in the trailer is the main theme of the game, which was composed by the amazing Sean Beeson. The rest of the soundtrack is being composed by Michael Gordon Shapiro. And for us, the soundtrack was always one of the pillars. The third pillar, we have 3 pillars. The soundtrack was one of them. So we were like, we need to nail the soundtrack, because a lot of the memories that I have of RTSs is soundtracks, is music. That's what I remember from all of those hours that I played. And we hope to create a lot more memories with this game as well.
Okay. I do have a quick question, and I gotta say again, I do enjoy the soundtrack. One thing in gaming that I definitely know that I've definitely noticed, and I feel like everybody else has, a soundtrack can make or break your game. Because the audience needs to be enthralled visually and audibly. You know what I mean? Definitely, if you have the visual part, the graphics, that's cool and all, but sound, just like music, has a powerful impact on your gameplay experience. So I'm definitely excited. I do like the music. It kind of takes you there, and I'm definitely excited to see what comes. I do have a question. What made you decide to do this, I guess you would say, style of graphics for this game?
Well, there are a number of reasons actually. We well, for starters, we are an indie company, so obviously, budget was an issue. So if we decided to go down the photorealistic style of game, it would have been just throwing money into an endless pit,
Hmm.
and you know what I mean. Uh, but even if we had the money, let's say we had the money to do whatever we wanted graphically, I'm not so sure that we wanted to go down the realistic graphic route anyway. Because when it comes to strategy games, one thing that is very, very important is understanding at a glance what's going on. And with a realistic game that has foliage, that has armors, that has, I don't know, emblems, signs, swords, shields, normal maps, whatever, everything is looking very, very cool in a screenshot. You take it in motion. It's like, okay, what's okay? Oh, okay, those are spearmen. Oh crap, those are spearmen. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but in a game like this, you cannot afford that, and so we wanted a style that allowed us to be as clear as possible, to exaggerate it as much as possible, because a bigger weapon in a realistic game sticks out like a sore thumb.
Hmm.
But in a game like this, I can make the mace of a warrior just as big as I want, just to make it more readable from the camera, and
Yeah.
that's gonna work. Um, we think that the faceted style that we have is really cool. That is the product of the work of many people, including our amazing concept artist Scott Pelico, which was able to translate what the initial idea was. Let's try to mix the faceted low poly style, which 3 years ago wasn't as uh, common as it is today, with the texture painted Blizzard style. And so we tried to cross the two, and this is the result. And it makes for a very readable game.
Hmm.
It's very stylish in a way that a lot of people love and some people don't, and we totally understand that. This is so subjective that some people are gonna be like, I that's not for me. But
Yeah.
usually when people are like, that's not for me, is because they really wanted a realistic game.
Hmm.
They really wanted to see all of that detail and all of that realism. But we really think that this is not the game for that kind of stuff.
And I and I,
um
and I sorry to interrupt you, but I suppose by
it's
taking this art style, you are setting yourself apart from um Age of Empires, which you did take inspiration from, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. We took a lot of inspiration from Age of Empires. It's the granddaddy of them all, and boy, I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this. It's probably the best RTS ever. I know that the StarCraft guys are gonna just nail me to the wall right now, but the Age of Empires 2 is just an incredible game. Um, uh, yes, this obviously sets us apart from it. It's also a way of modernizing the goofiness that Age of Empires 2 has, because Age of Empires 2 is goofy in a lot of ways. Uh, just to give you an example, it's all square based, right? It's all in a grid, and the TC, the town center, is 4 squares, and this is supposed to be the most important building in your town. And the castle is 4 squares, and the house is 2, and
Hmm.
a unit is like half. So one of the first issues that we had was like, oh crap, units. It's clear that units are too big and don't fit through doors. So if you take a look at if you pay close attention to the game, every door is like, we try to avoid putting doors near where units can walk,
Yeah, I see it
because
right now. Yeah.
there's a little goofiness in this kind of games that if you approach it from a realistic standpoint, it
Hmm.
just it
You're
just
just
doesn't
like,
work.
what? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So this style also allows us to embrace some of that goofiness
Hmm.
that comes from, this is a video game at first and foremost, and so it has rules, and we want the graphic to serve the rules rather than the opposite.
Yeah, yeah, and I like you said, with these graphics and this animation, it allows you to get away with certain things, to make it, like you said, goofy.
Right, that's correct.
Hmm. All right. And as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the upcoming features for this game, I actually did a little deep dive. You have varied AI opponents and other that are polished up. You're gonna have matchmaking, solo, and team leaders.
By the way, feel free to ask me about questions about either of these two games, because I've been heavily involved in the like pre-alpha testing of both of them. Mm-hmm. I'm proud to say, now Gianpaolo did not go to Kickstarter, but I did actually back Elliot on Kickstarter. So
okay,
if you have any questions about like the actual games, like how they play out, feel free to also ping me.
I mean, these are like general questions. These are open to everybody. Elliot, Paulo, and you, Resonant. So anybody can answer them at any time. You know what I mean? So I mean, those are the features you guys have coming up for that. And I do.
Yeah. If you want me to give just a quick rundown, we're gonna have this game is very much multiplayer focused. That means that we were gonna have ranked multiplayer with auto queue. We're gonna start with 1v1 queue. We're gonna have also normal lobbies where you can play with your friends, any rules, any kind of rule set you want. But the meat and potatoes of this game is really like the multiplayer action and trying to make this a competitive game. The game is also going to have challenges and skirmish mode, and the AI. We try to create a very good AI, or as good as we could, and we plan to improve on this as time goes by. We do have a closed beta going on right now, so any feedback that we can gather from there, we try to implement in the game. But this game is very much oriented towards competitive multiplayer. We do also have a survival mode for single player. There's no campaign. We're not shying away from that. Campaign is something that might happen at a later date. But right now we're trying to really create a game that you can play online with your friends or, with opponents from all over the world.
Mm-hmm. All right. I do have a quick question, and says, as you noticed, you got PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. You got a bunch of games. A bunch of people are developing these games to go inside this whole esports. Esports is like the new meta. You know what I mean? Right. Is where everybody wants to go. In your mind's eye, did you create this game with that in mind? Esports down the road?
Yes and no. Here's why. Yes, of course, because we wish. But unless you are Blizzard, in my honest opinion, you cannot create a game for esports from the ground up, if that makes any sense. Here's why. People will play what they want to play. And usually esports title become esports because people make them into esports games. The perfect example, and this goes against what I just said, is Hearthstone. Hearthstone wasn't built to be an esports title. Hearthstone is full of RNG. That is just like when you go to a game design class, the first thing that they teach you is that competitive RNG, no, they don't go together. But for some reason, Hearthstone is so exciting to watch that it was made into an esports game, just despite being just very random oftentimes. And the other opposite of that, and again, it goes against what I just said, is Heroes of the Storm. Heroes of the Storm was just like, okay, we're going to make this game. It's going to be for esports. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. And it got okay reactions and it got okay traction, but it's probably not what they hoped. And any other company that is smaller of that, I said Blizzard, but I used it as an example of super magnitude company.
Yeah.
But unless you're at that level of company, you cannot really build a game for esports, because building a game for esports means throwing a lot of cash at it on tournaments, on post-game support, post-launch support, on organized play. So we built the game to be competitive and watchable. Those are the two things that you can do as a developer to make a game esports worthy.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about this, and I also want to hear a little bit about Elliot's opinion on this as well, because one thing that immediately struck me I was shocked when I played Prismata, is that this is a game that is like beyond pre-alpha when I started playing it, and it was like almost feature complete. Elliot's one of those developers, and for those of you who are interested, I actually have some footage like from way back when. Like I have a Prismata tutorial on my YouTube channel you can check out, and I even featured Elliot on my channel as well. And the game at that point, like 2 years ago, was super feature complete, and it had things such as a functional replay mode that you could share via the browser, and this really interesting feature like analysis mode, and things like that. I think breed the possibility of things being an esport. But I completely agree with you, though, that you can't force an esport. But by having a watchable game, and by having those features for it, you can make it more likely. It's interesting though, because Hearthstone does not have a tournament mode, and it didn't have a spectator mode initially either, and just turned into one. So it's a really interesting debate, and I'd love to hear a little bit of everyone's opinion.
I can speak a little bit on that. I mean,
Yeah.
The feature set of our game it's kind of the product of the history of our title, that it began as a hobby project for a bunch of friends, and we made a replay mode because we wanted a replay mode to see our own games. Like, I'll talk about this more later, but we never intended to make a commercial product. It was just something we were doing for fun. And like the first version of replays in Prismata, I added it in like an afternoon, and it was just there and it worked. And the fact that games like Hearthstone still haven't implemented a proper tournament mode or proper replays or something like that, it's mostly because of the way those games are designed. They don't really design the game in such a way that those are easy things to implement or practical things to implement, and they want to spend their development time elsewhere because of the existence of Twitch and YouTube, and there's so many other ways of achieving the same goals, so they get deprioritized. Regarding esports, like we never did anything like we don't see esports as a way of, we're going to be on TV, we're going to get all this sponsorship money. Like, I don't know if anybody will ever be able to make a lot of money by getting like Coca-Cola or MasterCard to sponsor a Prismata tournament. That's not our goal. Our goal is to have community-focused tournaments that grow the game and build the audience of the game and captivate the existing audience of the game, making them love the game more and enjoy the game more and generate value for the possibility of having competitive play. But like, I think for a small indie team like us or like what Gianpaolo's working on, like, we don't have the expectation that we're going to be on ESPN or anything like that, but we do want to have community-focused tournaments and competitive play that really invigorates our community, and that's what we're going for.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's more about your community having a hub to come together and play competitively rather than kind of get seen on the broad spectrum like CSGO and all those things where they try to cater their game to esports. You're pretty much saying if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We're all about community.
Well, there have been some products that like put a large prize pool behind a tournament early in the game's development as a way of trying to get a lot of top players to sort of pile on and play that game. It's a strategy that Gwent kind of did when they said, oh, we're going to have big prizes for our early tournaments. And then a lot of streamers said, oh, maybe I should take up Gwent. Maybe there's something in this for me. Maybe I could become a professional player of this game and do decently well with it. And, we don't have the bankroll that a company like CD Projekt Red does. So that's sort of not really an option for us. But I think there are ways that game development studios can use esports and competitive plays to grow their product other than trying to actually cash in on sponsorships and big tournaments and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. And I guess I could project this question to all three of you guys. And we kind of touched on it. What do you think the secret sauce is to make a game to have a loyal following? You know what I mean? Like people make their games specifically for esports. Some don't, some do. What do you think the secret sauce is? Do you think it's in how the game's developed, the audio, the visual, the gameplay, or community interaction with the devs? What do you think cultivates that, a loyal following?
Make a good game.
I agree with that. That's $100 billion question, though.
Yeah, it's a very broad question.
Like, with strategy games in particular, it's so difficult to make a game that stands up to the scrutiny of hundreds and thousands of hours of play because players will find the optimal strategies. They will destroy your game. They will find the most degenerate thing they can do and do it every single time. And if your game doesn't remain interesting after that 1,000 hours of additional gameplay, once all of the sort of basic strategies and concepts have been discovered, then there's no end game for people to keep playing.
Bingo.
And it's hard to do that when you're designing a game.
I think AoE 2 captures that perfectly, for the record. And I think that Prismata and Empires Apart definitely have the potential to do that as well.
Oh yeah, when you say, I don't remember what the word that you used was. I think it was timeless, but essentially to build like that long-lasting relationship with the players. That's really, I mean, you can start going down the top 10 games of everybody's in here, and you will find probably 10 different recipes to achieve that. Take a Final Fantasy, maybe some of the oldest ones that people tend to put into top 10s, like say Final Fantasy VII. They were using open development? No. They were probably somewhere in some place, Japan, just making their game heads down. They released it to the public, and it's just an amazing game, and that's how people remember it, as just an amazing game. So this comes back to what Elias said of just make an amazing game. But there are multiple things. We tried with open development, and I think that builds a relationship, but it's a relationship. It's sort of like being friendly with your local store, like the owner of your local store. But if the owner of the local store still sells you crap, you're not gonna go back there. It's gonna be like, yeah, I like you, but your coffee smells like poo poo. So you're not gonna go back there. So there's a lot of billion things. Luck is also a factor. This is a cold truth. We might make an amazing game, but there are probably hundreds of games now coming out now on Steam every day. I think we are in the order of like 70 games a day now.
That's crazy, right?
It's insane. So whatever day we pick out of that Q1 2018, probably we're gonna come out against the 70 other games, and probably one or two are gonna be XCOM level, that kind of size games, because even the big guys right now are like, every month is full. So it's January might be a tough month, February might be a tough month. Who knows? You go down to what games are coming out. It's like amazing game after amazing game. So it's tough, man.
Yeah, and like you said, I want to kind of piggyback off what you said about how, like, I mean, every month you got like 70 plus games coming out. And as developers, a day?
Yes. Yes.
Ooh, I did not know that. I didn't know that.
On Steam, I don't remember the exact numbers, but we're in the double digits, and we are approaching 100 games being released on Steam a day. Now, granted,
good Lord Jesus,
a lot of them are, I don't want to say crap, but they're like very low quality titles since Steam opened the floodgates and everybody can essentially publish on Steam. But it's still noise. It's still people talking behind you while you're trying to say, hey, there's Empires Apart coming out. So, you know what I mean? It's difficult. Yeah.
And I kind of have a question. Off that. Do you, I mean, I've been having a conversation with my community about this and on Twitter about this. I kind of posted a poll. This is pretty much targeted towards Elliot, Resonance, and Juan Paulo. Do you guys feel like you said, you got 100 plus games coming out a day? Do you feel like the gaming industry is turning into this quantity over quality? You know what I mean? Like, people are just like, push a game out. I mean, we've seen it with EA. We've seen it with these huge companies who are like, you know what? We don't care if the game's done. I mean, Division's a prime example. PlayerUnknown's a prime example. You got these games coming out because there's the high demand is, we want this game now. And I'm not gonna lie, that's part of the community. That's their fault, because they're like, we want this now. Do you feel like it's turned from quality over quantity to quantity over quality? Push the game out, get it out there. And do you think that's diluted the industry?
I see it in two ways. One is I see a lot more fringe products being made that wouldn't necessarily have been successful, but can be successful now because the total audience has grown so much. Yes, the number of games out has grown. But if you look at the total number of games that people play in a year, or the total number of distinct titles that they spend their hours on, like, most people are still spending the majority of their gaming hours on a small number of games, and and the total amount of their consciousness that's taken up by games that they consider a profound game that was released this year, I don't think that number has gone up. Like, if you say how many really meaningful gaming experiences did you have in the last year, is that number necessarily? No, it's just that products are being more tuned to specific targeted audiences. And yeah, a lot of it's crap. Yeah, a lot of it's no effort and relatively forgettable. But I think of the stuff that stands out, it's not necessarily more difficult to compete if your product is a standout product. So I think nowadays more than ever, you have to be a standout product. You have to be offering something unique. But given that, I think you can succeed within a niche in ways that were more difficult earlier.
I mean, it's interesting. I think it speaks volume that there's so many games out there, and that my free time is limited because I do a lot of streaming and YouTube, and yet the games that I turn to are such a small group. Even though the volume of them has increased, I'm most excited about, in early 2018, Prismata and Empires Apart. Out of a sea of games from two very small studios with really big ambitions. So I think it speaks volume, I guess, of the potential quality in them. I mean, I love playing indie games. Like Hollow Knight was one of the ones I played recently.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no.
No, one thing I find is just like, yeah, I totally agree. The number of games that I'm really excited about, I don't feel like that number has grown despite the overall number of releases having grown. And it's just because, I found my niche. I know the types of products I want to play. I know the developers making them, and they're not necessarily coming out more often.
Bingo. Yeah, I don't think the number has changed, even though the quantity of games is out. There's still I think exactly the same number of games that I still look forward to all the time. Interesting question, though.
Yeah, to go back to the original question, it's hard to say that as an industry we're going towards quantity over quality, because the industry goes in many different ways, and it does a lot of different things, and like Elliot partially said, I think you can do whatever you want right now, and everybody can find its own niche. And you have the big guys and you have us, and we have our niche, and we might survive in our niche, and they are shooting for the moon. So they're two different things. I guess I'm a little bit more optimistic when it comes to the industry. I think that the rate of good games that are coming out now is higher than ever. I mean, if you're really honest, and if you go take a look at all the releases in 2017, I mean, you might like them or dislike them, but they're all amazing game, even just from the production quality or the scope of them. Just to think that so many games of this size are coming out in just span of 1 year is amazing. It's the market is weird. Sometimes it's hard to just look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is the direction we're going. I think that definitely at the higher end there's a tendency to follow trends that is kind of it's kind of boring to watch, because it happens in movies, it happens in cinema, and cinema follows trends, and that's like, oh, whatever, But let's try to not be that. Video games, we are so new, and we could be so much more. But then everybody's like open world, and then everybody's like
VR games.
VR
games is
VR.
VR Prismata.
VR Prismata or Dark Souls Combat mixed with whatever.
Yep.
So, VR AoE too.
Yeah, I mean VR is the meta. Like everybody like Fortnite VR.
That and 4K. 4K is, by the way, the word of 2017, and we're running out of 2017. So just to remind everyone that 4K is the word of the year.
Yeah, but online online CCGs were the hottest thing for a second, and that right now is survival. And for a while was MOBAs. Anybody remembers what was the EA's MOBAs? EA's MOBA?
Does
EA.
anyone remember?
Wait. It is that
Was it Strife?
Paragon?
No, it was a complex name. But you know what I mean? Like it was.
I gotta look.
No, I know what you're talking about though. I know the game.
Everybody was making their own MOBA, and they all flopped because now like Dawnguard.
Dawnguard.
Dawnguard, yeah. I was thinking of Dawn of War 30.
Dawngate.
Thank you.
Dawngate, and then I remember, I don't know if you guys remember the Crisis on Infinite Earths MOBA.
Yep. You could blow up buildings. That was the gimmick.
Right. It was so cool. But they all fizzled away because there's a tendency at high end. It's like, okay, this is the next big thing. We must chase it. But if we chase it, when we get there, people will want something else. We don't care. So that's kind of depressing. But fortunately, the market is big enough to allow people like us to do these kind of crazy games. And trying. And I know I say crazy games, and we're making an RTS that very much looks like classic RTSs, but
that's crazy though. That is crazy.
There's no guarantee that it will be a success. It's crazy in that regard, and especially in this day and age where a lot of games just come out and bomb.
I want to chime in and say that it is actually crazy to build a classic RTS in this day and age. People tell me all the time, like, why are you excited for Empires Apart? The RTS genre is dead. And I always tell them, the RTS genre is not dead. It's just they stopped releasing good RTS games. They just stopped doing it. I firmly believe that there is a market for RTS games that is and has always existed. It's just that over time, the industry shifted away from the mechanics that made the classic, like, 90s style RTSs so popular. They shift away from it. They stopped releasing good RTS games. So I don't think the genre is dead. I just think they stopped making good RTS games. And what's really cool about Prismata is that it's on the other end of the spectrum. Elliot actually answered the question to me that I had in the shower like 6 years ago or something like that. Like, what would happen if you distilled an RTS game down to its purest form and like made it turn-based? Like, could you even do that? Turns out you can. And it works really, really well.
I had a quick question. Sorry to interrupt for you, Resonance. Flatch in chat was thinking the same thing, like we're brothers from another mother. You think of the same thing I was thinking. I want to ask you, Resonance, because you seem very passionate about both these games.
Oh, yeah.
What do you like about both these games?
Ooh, that's a tough question. So for starters, I like the genuineness and communication that I feel like I get from both of them. So if I ever have, a concern about the game, I can just approach Gianpaolo or I can approach Elliot about it. And I always feel like they're actually listening and that they value feedback. Also, I think that these games are different and unique in something that a AAA studio would never attempt. Like Prismata in particular caught me just like completely off guard as a game that AAA would never have the courage to do something like this. And they just have a different priority system that I really enjoy. And the games to me have potential. I feel like a lot of AAA titles have put, overemphasis on release dates, for example. I have a lot of experience in the industry itself, and release dates are tough, but both Gianpaolo and Elliot they understand that the release date itself is what's important. The actual first impression that the player gets, rather than just rushing it out the door. And these games are unique. Like Empires Apart is a classic RTS game, and we haven't had one in like over a decade, basically. And it actually plays really well. And Prismata is one of the most unique ideas for a game ever. Like both of these are games that I've always wanted, but didn't know they existed, which is why I'm so attached to them. But I wouldn't care as much if it wasn't for the developers. It's the studios, it's Lunar and Destiny Bit that keep me engaged.
Okay. That was actually a really good answer. I want to take something off what Pence AOE said in chat. He says, but a lot of people are getting sick of the same old boring stuff. Now, I had a conversation with my community about this, and I mean, there's so many big titles coming out, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm restless. As a gamer, I am restless, and I feel like everybody in chat and every single one of us, like you guys said, Guampalo said, I wanted to create a game that nobody was creating. You know, and I'm pretty sure, Elliot, you feel the same way. I'm creating something that I want to play that nobody else is doing. You know, I want to have fun. And you guys have gone out of your way and put blood, sweat, and tears and countless hours of time into creating something that you yourself would love to play. And I think that's very special. And I'm not gonna lie, as a gamer, I mean, I played pub, I suck at it, Fortnite, all those games. And I played, you know, my fair share of games. And I'm honestly, as a gamer, swaying more towards indie games. Because indie games are so unique. Like, you guys have created something so unique. And I feel like the gaming community is saying, hey, I mean, there's these huge titles coming out. They look like the other one just came out last month, but they got a reskin. You know, we're looking for something more genuine. We're looking for something more tangible that's unique. That doesn't just look like the game that came out last month, you know? And
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I am definitely swaying a lot towards indie games. Have you guys noticed that, talking to other gamers, fellow gamers, and fellow developers, that the community is making that, I guess, that shift, and that people are more interested in these genuine games rather than just these a dime a dozen? You know what I mean?
Like, I think, let me tell you something that really motivates me as a developer. I want to work on a game that without me would not get made. Like, that to me is really motivating. I know that if we hadn't done this thing with Prismata, then this game would simply not exist. And like, you know, when you talk about a genre being oversubscribed or undersubscribed, like there are too many or too few RTS games being released for the size of the market. Like, you know, sure, free market's supposed to solve the problem, but the problem is a big studio, they have limited human capital to work with. And if you're Rockstar and you have a huge group of talented developers, like, Rockstar is the only type of developer that can make GTA. Like, they could put a small team on an RTS, but they're losing out on the opportunity to put those developers on the one big thing they want to do, right? So I think that the gravitation of more players towards indie games is because that's where the variety and novelty in gameplay is coming. And it's out of necessity of, like, you know, the games industry is so big and growing so fast that if you're a large development with that many people, like, it's the financially sound decision to take on big projects, because that's the one thing that you can do as a big developer, right? So all of these smaller projects, they fall to studios like ours, and that's just sort of how it ends up. But it's beneficial in that it allows us to thrive in a niche, and it's so important that we have the ability to do this, right? Because it allows this variety in different types of games to exist.
That's very, very true. I want to touch on something which is, we're kind of, honestly, I had my whole template planned out, the order, but honestly, we're just going with it. We're just weaving in and out of questions, and I'm loving it. It's very organic. Both you guys and Resonance, you've seen this too. Do you feel that there's been this glorification of games coming out that are hard, like Dark Souls? You got Dark Souls, Cuphead. I mean, Cuphead brought it to the front line. A lot of people, a lot of streamers, a lot of content creators were talking about the fact that, I can't say the game culture, but I say there's this definitely growing niche of people that like this elitist gaming. Like, this game needs to be hard, and if you can't beat it, you're not good. And I mean, what do you guys think about that as developers?
I wouldn't call it elitist. I think that I think that it's definitely a niche that was hungry, because, let's face it, a lot of games aren't designed to be punishing, and neither, to be honest, neither is Cuphead, and neither is, let's say, Dark Souls. They're both designed to be fair. Sometimes it's not even obvious that some of these games are designed to be hard. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I would say that you said glorification, and I think that's an interesting word there, because I wonder how much it is coming from, say, the press, or other kinds of people. There are not the people that play the game or the people that made the game. You know, the people that made the game, they're like, okay, this is the game. Oh, the game is super hard. And suddenly your article pops up, the game is super hard, this game hates me, blah, blah, blah. And then you start making comparisons, like this is the Dark Souls of shooters.
I said that, yep.
Which, you know, it's so I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it. It's hard. I don't know, as developers, I don't feel like making a hard game would make me sell more copies right now, because one thing that Elliot said, and that's absolutely spot on, is that your game needs to stand out. And so, for example, right now, being a hard game isn't enough, you know, because the Dark Souls of racing games does not make you sell more copies. It's not a hook that is strong enough.
Racing games. I'm trying to imagine.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm like thinking.
You just created like the best picture in my mind of what that kind of game would look like.
I'm just gonna write that idea down. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Gianpaolo.
Thank you, Gianpaolo. We just got a new game.
Do it.
I think that the sentiment of difficulty, it arises from this mismatch of expectations where, like, classically, you know, you played Donkey Kong, that was a hard game, you know, Donkey Kong Country, you know, these old games were hard. But nowadays, a lot of more casual gamers are expecting, you know, a more story-based experience with adjustable difficulty levels. And when you get this very cartoony, sort of kid-friendly looking game that suddenly you know, you actually have to die in order to learn the boss patterns and learn how to avoid them. And death is part of the cycle of learning how to play through the levels. People aren't used to that because the other games in the genre don't have that type of game feel, even though classic games did. And, you know, if you played classic side scrollers, you die a million times to learn how to get better at the game. I think it's just a mismatch between the game's intended audience and the people who ultimately end up playing it. And that's why when the game gets famous, that's why everybody says it's so hard, because when the game gets famous, that's the thing that causes its audience to expand out of this intended group of people who know and understand that it's hard to a more mainstream audience that isn't expecting that level of difficulty from the product.
That's totally true, because I'm not gonna lie, when Cuphead came out, I mean, the thing that grabbed me was the visual aspect. The game looked beautiful. Some people might disagree or agree. The game looked beautiful. It was unique. You know, when I saw the gameplay, I was like, this game is definitely the game that a lot of people have been looking for and waiting for. I played the game. I played it on, what was it? You got normal, and then you got a step down. I think it's like easy. I'm not gonna lie, I played on easy to even beat the game. Wait.
I was watching your stream. I picked your playthrough over all the guys I follow, and that was easy? Are you kidding me?
I mean, no, I won't say easy for me, because I'm not gonna lie. I almost
that was the easy difficulty.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It was still a challenge. It was still a challenge. And then the catch is there was this huge controversy over it. If you played on easy, the mode I did, my community straight lied to me. They didn't say anything about it. I got towards when you get to the end, you can't beat the final boss because you didn't play regular. Yeah, which kind of made no sense to me, but
that sucks.
But yeah,
okay. That game was hard anyway, by the way, watching you, dealing with... God, that lost.
Dude, I couldn't do it, man. I was like, I'm done with Cuphead. And with that aspect, I feel like a game being hard can actually drive some people away. Like Elliot said, when it gets out of that bubble that's like, hey, we're ready for this. We want this. And it gets out of that bubble, average consumers like me, myself, and I go, oh, I see that game. I want to play it because other people are playing it. It looks fun. And then we kind of hit that wall. It's like, damn, we gotta level up. We got to play till we die. We got to get smarter, because each death's supposed to make you smarter, like Dark Souls, like Juan Paulo said. And you kind of hit this wall as a consumer. You're like, damn, this game is definitely not for me, you know?
But that's fine. There's so many games coming out there. There's probably a game out there for you. But for example, when Cuphead was being advertised, because it was being developed for so long, I don't remember them ever talking about the game being hard. But I haven't followed it super closely, so if I missed it, I apologize. But, you know, I only knew it was hard after it came out, because people started to be like, oh, this game is very hard.
Yep.
So it wasn't at the core of their design, maybe not in a conscious level. You know, I don't think they sat down at tables like, okay, this game needs to be hard.
Yeah.
I think they just made the game that they wanted to make, and they made a game that resonated with so many people, and that's Cuphead. That's the huge smashing success that it is, and so many people liked it. But I was like, okay, this graphic style is my jam. This is amazing.
Yep.
This is one of the best looking game I've ever seen.
And the music.
I'll play it. Yeah. Oh my god. I'll play it for that. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's hard. All right. Let's do it anyway. I don't care. It's you know. So I guess it resonated with people, but sometimes if you're making art, a lot of times you don't know you're making art, because otherwise I feel like people can feel what you're trying to make, and whatever you're trying to make, whatever thought there was behind your creation, somehow slips through, and it sort of like it sort of like paints the creation. It's weird. I'm trying to like follow my thought, but essentially is I feel like gamers can feel what the designer was feeling a lot of times, and if the difficulty in Cuphead and the way it's designed was artificial, I feel like it wouldn't have the same success that it has. Everybody would be like, "Oh, this is a pretty game, but it's clunky. It's frustrating." But it's such a piece of art that just worked and just has an amazing success, and they deserve it.
Definitely agree. I'm going to pull back. I have plenty more questions, and I'm pretty sure everybody in chat does too. If anybody in chat or you're currently viewing and watching, if you have any questions, we will be opening the whole question board at the end of the podcast. Also, I do feed off you guys in chat, so thank you so much. Flash, anybody else in chat that I kind of took your questions. Pins AoE too. Thank you guys for that. Now let's pull back and let's get back on track to the one and only Elliot, Prismata, because I mean we've been talking quite a bit about that game. A lot of people in chat are very interested to hear more about the game. I saw a couple playthroughs, and the game, just like Juan Paulo's game, looks very exceptional and looks like it's gonna be very promising. This game, to my knowledge, is only gonna be available on PC, right? On Steam.
PC and Mac.
Okay, PC and Mac.
And we also have a web client for the game as well.
Okay. And this is made by Lunarch Studios. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yep, Lunarch.
And this is expected the first quarter of 2018 for people that are looking out for it.
There's a lot of good stuff coming out.
A lot of good stuff. Yes.
Early 2018, everybody. Hope you're all ready.
So you can join the alpha right now if you go to prismata.net. But we're going to be doing a big Steam launch in the first quarter of this year.
Okay, all right. And is this game free to play when it does launch?
No. So there will be sometime long in the future a free version available, which will have limited single player content, but we'll have full access to the online player. When we give out a lot of free keys, so if anybody wants in that, it's fine. But it will be a paid product containing a single player campaign, full story based single player campaign, as well as you can play against the AI. There's a ladder. We do weekly events. It's quite a complete package as far as what you expect out of a strategy game.
Okay. Do you mind if I play a quick trailer before we get too deep into this conversation? We'll play a quick
trailer. Yes, play the trailer.
The link is included for you guys, and definitely let me know when you guys are ready to do this, and we'll vamonos. All right. 3, 2, 1, vamonos. There's a lot of stuff happening. That's all I know.
Yeah, similar to Res, we're going to be having a new trailer launch very soon. Been kind of working on a bit of the filming and editing stuff over the holidays, and it's all coming together. So there will be some more trailer content out soon. This is sort of from a while back, but
All right.
This is an old trailer, but
Early access, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, but it sold me, right? And one of the things that I try to do is to break down really complicated concepts in an easy to understand way. Basically, Prismata is an RTS game distilled down to its purest form in a sort of hybrid turn-based style game, and it just works. It is overwhelming, though, to look at first, and you look at that trailer, and it's difficult to tell what you're actually looking at. There's a lot happening, and that's one of the reasons why Elliot has actually, because honestly, like, you go like 1.5 years back, Elliot had a very, I would consider to be feature complete game, but he decided to delay the release of it a little bit because, and I can attest to this too, a lot of people had issues learning the game. He had created a game that had so much replay value. It was like completely feature complete. It was so complex, and like once you got past the initial hurdle, it didn't get old. But for new players, it was overwhelming. And so his solution and what he's working on right now is this awesome campaign.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, when this was a hobby project, we're talking 2011, 2012, like every single new player that learned the game was taught by one of us, one of the devs, right? And at some point this was no longer sustainable, and we had guides and YouTube videos and stuff like that. But who wants to learn a new game by playing guides and YouTube videos? And even then, like, we made a tutorial in the game, but it wasn't really that accessible. Just because it's a game where you have 50 units on the game board at once. There's a lot of complexity in the types of decisions that you can make. And even though the game's rule set is very simple, like every single unit on the board can either be clicked or not clicked. You have resources and you can buy things, and there's a combat system. That's about it. It's quite a simple game, but it looks really intimidating to people. And so our new trailer, for example, the new trailer is narrated, and there's a narrator, which is me, but basically he's talking about what he's doing in the game. Oh, buy units, build a tech structure, buy a robot sniper, right? And it's those core elements of gameplay that are fundamental to all strategy games are present in Prismata, and highlighting that familiarizes the game concept with people who otherwise would think it's kind of a weird looking product. And we talk about it's a hybrid strategy game. Mm-hmm. It's a minimalist strategy game. It takes RTS and removes the map and makes it, what if you could play an RTS with just cards? And that's what Prismata is. There's no randomness, no deck building. It's just fundamental RTS strategy. Like, you can rush, you can go for econ, you can choose which path in the tech tree you want to do. And based on what your opponent does, you can respond accordingly. And it turns into a very strategic sort of, my battle plan versus your battle plan, and my tactical execution of that battle plan versus yours. And you can play blitz, and you can play tournaments, and we have all these different game modes that vary the formula. And we also have, you saw in the trailer, that panel of 100 different units in the game. Every time you play, you and your opponent use different units, and so there's a pool of purchasable units that is randomly generated at the start of the game and is different every time. So each game, you have to look at the available units, decide what you want to get, decide what tech you want to get. And it's sort of a new challenge every time. So you don't like memorize build orders or openings. You develop a new build order or opening every time you play. And it's about strategic decision making rather than sort of memorizing things or high level APM or micro or anything like that. It emphasizes the strategic aspect of strategy games. And that was sort of our goal from the start.
Okay. All right. I was on your website creeping around like I normally do. And I noticed PC Gamer held this game the best parts of StarCraft and Hearthstone.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I definitely noticed it. What made you choose those two games to take inspiration from and make them to one creation? I guess.
So fun fact, when this game was first developed, Hearthstone wasn't announced yet. Back then it was Magic the Gathering, StarCraft 1, not StarCraft 2. Dominion, which is a tabletop deck building game, and if you played that or Star Realms or any of those types of games, you would see some similarities. Some people say, Dominion inspired Prismata in the following way. We used to play Dominion, and we would lament the terrible RNG in the game, and on turn 3 you always get screwed in Dominion. It just determines who wins. And in Dominion, you sort of put things into a deck and then draw cards and you get money and you could spend it. Prismata is kind of like, what if you played Dominion and drew your whole deck every turn? So all of your workers just produce resources every turn. All of your attackers and defenders just produce attack and defense every turn. You don't have to draw the cards you need. It's just everything on the battlefield you can use. And that was one of the original inspirations for the game. And from there, we added a combat system, and we referenced games like Magic the Gathering for how combat works in sort of a turn-based card game. And we actually do quite a few things differently regarding combat than some of the other products in the genre. But, we tried a bunch of different combat systems and picked the one that was the most interesting and had the most insightful, deep gameplay consequences. And we just rolled with it and then built all these other mechanics around it.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed you were the winner of a StarCraft tournament, Reddit tournament, correct?
Yeah, so I used to play a lot of StarCraft, and honestly, like that specific tournament, there's a community on Reddit called r/StarCraft, which is a ton of StarCraft fans on Reddit, and they used to host tournaments, and I won one of those tournaments, and I would say a competent StarCraft player, but I'm not one of those crazy Korean 300 APM guys. The thing I did to win my tournament is every time I would get paired against somebody, we'd have a week or so to play the games. I would get every replay I could from my opponent, and I would look at what build orders they did and what strategies they used, and I would just find the build that countered that. And I would learn and refine the best build order to beat my opponent. And I remember the guy I defeated in the finals of that tournament, he was way better than me. Definitely a better player. But I knew the build orders that beat what I predicted he was going to do. And I executed those build orders and won. And Prismata is a game that's about doing that thing, basically, which is finding the best build order, executing it, and winning it. Some people think of it as like a build order simulator almost, because it takes away all those other aspects of the RTS. There's no micro, there's no your attention is not really a resource. There's no sort of how many things can you click in a minute. It's mostly just about the building and the strategy. There's no unit positioning on the map. You don't have to make a concave or tower rush or stuff like that. It's just strategy, no mechanic.
All right. And for this game, I think there's quite a few people wanting to know, what are the current standout features for this game? Because I've seen it. You got a competitive ladder with auto matchmaking. You got rewards. You got loots. You got blitz mode, events. And then I saw this thing I wanted to ask about: design your own unit.
That was sort of a fan idea that went too far. We have in the game so many different units, and we constantly get people asking, make more units, add more units to the game. And it's because those players are sort of veterans of the game that have been playing for months and months and months. Whereas new players are still kind of learning the existing units and developing their strategies around them. So we have been releasing new content throughout our early access period, and we will be dumping more units once the game launches. And we have had community designed units make it into the actual game as well. So
I think that's really cool that you involve the community in. I guess it's special to them because they feel like they've created a part of the game, and they get to play with it. That's really, really cool. I do want to step back and say, it's not really a question, but I do want to say that it's really, really cool to hear Juan Paulo and Elliot talk about your creations. I mean, you guys are so passionate about it, and you can see it in the way you talk about it. And I mean, I want to thank you guys again. I already thank you guys many times. Thank you guys for being here and even sharing this with me and our audience. This is definitely an eye opener, and this is definitely one of a lifetime experience for sure.
No problem. I love talking about this stuff.
Them. Yeah.
And what are some? I don't know if you could say this, Elliot. But what are some upcoming unique features that you're looking?
By the way, I posted in the Glitched Out podcast the actual list of current and upcoming features, but Elliot can talk about them. But this is an actual accurate, up to date list because both Empires Apart and Prismata have gone through a very long development phase. So some things have since changed.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
the list I posted in general is, as far as I'm aware, up to date.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the main thing we've been focusing on is the single player campaign. And it started out, we just wanted to like put a few scenarios where you'd play against the AI, and that would be that. And we kind of felt that investing more in the single player experience would allow us to grow the game's audience much more than we otherwise would.
Mhm,
So we have a story-based single player campaign with characters and settings, and there's expert mode, there's bonus missions, there's tons of content there. And sound and writing and these the type of things that we want to add to the game to make it as accessible as possible to people who they just want to play a cool strategy game. They're not necessarily some crazy competitive gamers. Like one of the problem right now with our existing audience is that it's all like super hardcore competitive 1v1 focused players who want to dominate the leaderboards. And that's a great audience and I love them so dearly, but that can't be your game's entire audience because it's just not large enough to really get behind the game that we want to build. So, we need to make our game more appealing to a wider, broader audience. And that's why the campaign has been such a huge emphasis and has taken so much time and
mhm.
so much attention.
All right, nice. Um, See that you do take this game does take a little, I would say, inspiration from Hearthstone and StarCraft. Do you think this game has the potential to bridge that gap and bring people from both communities, the StarCraft community and the Hearthstone community?
We've seen that. Like we've seen players come from so many different areas. Like we have, Go players, chess players, people who love tabletop board games, people who play Magic the Gathering. Like Prismata has generated an interest from such a wide gamut of different players in different communities that just want to try something new and exciting rather than the
Mhm.
same old, same old. And
Yeah.
like we get a lot of Hearthstone players who they're salty about the game's RNG or about the way the game is monetized, and they've been looking for a new game to play. And they see so many of these online collectible card games that are just more of the same, and they're doing that same kind of exploitative buy packs, build decks business model with constant new content updates where you just have to keep paying and paying. And like many companies have been doing very well with that business model, but many people are looking for an alternative. And so our game is not a game where you build decks. And that was it was that way from the start. We tried a mode where you could build a deck, and we found so many balance problems and design problems with it that it was clear we weren't going to go in that direction. And it has turned into an asset for us because people want to play a game where there's absolutely no pay to win. And that's what our game is.
That is a huge thing in the gaming community right now. This pay to win fiasco you guys have seen it as devs going down with multiple companies. You got what? Battlefront, Star Wars, the whole pay to win fiasco with them. There's definitely a few other games that I can't mention off the top of my head that you guys probably know I'm talking about that are suffering from this whole pay to win fiasco. I guess as I can kind of bridge off the question, how do you guys feel about these pay to win games as developers? Do you feel like, on the other side is they got to make their money? The pay to win, because some people do like pay to win games. People still do play those. It's not like this is not accepted. Some people play them. How do you guys feel about them?
I play Hearthstone, and that game is pay to win. It is a bit, but it's absolutely pay to have fun, which is very similar. And personally, I don't like those type of games. I really like it when everyone is on a level playing field. And I remember when I was playing League of Legends initially, and I would play against a person who I'm like level 5, and he's level 30, and he's decked out. He's got a full rune page. He's got some like super like master like Lee Sin that like glows in the dark and shoots lasers everywhere. And he literally starts the game with more stats than me because he's played longer and that I'm match made against him. But League of Legends isn't the pay to win game, but that's just an example. I do have problems with those type of games, and it sucks to be a new player in Hearthstone. I happen to like the gameplay, but like the price of the game is insane. It is frustrating. these games, none of these games that are free to play are actually free to play, except for like Prismata.
For me, it's like even before
and
pay to
Dota
win
2.
was such a
Dota 2
big
is one.
thing.
Yeah.
I lamented the loss of games where your skill is the thing that allows you to win. And if you look at games like World of Warcraft, where you have to grind for a long time, not just to max out your levels, but to get gear and stuff like that, like those games habituate players to like viewing effort and random reward as the thing that they need to somehow grow themselves within the game. And for me, gaming was always about growing your own personal skill and mastery of the mechanics of the game in order to improve yourself as a player. And when it turns into just like open your wallet, I see that as a loss of the traditional gaming value of like becoming good at something.
It's like a lazy way out.
Yeah. And like I know it's been so profitable for these companies that are monetizing it, but it's like I want to engage with products where I as a player become good at the game through my own effort, through my own learning and mastery. And I think there are still lots of gamers that are of that nature. But as gaming grows its audience and becomes more mainstream, that hardcore gamer value of like valuing mastery and skill has kind of fallen off a bit. And I see, these grinding type games as well as pay to win type games as sort of replacing that in the global consciousness of what we view games as a medium as. And I kind of lament that loss, because I think mastery is it's the thing that makes kids who play video games turn out to be smart kids and kids who want to try hard at getting good at things.
Agreed.
I think it's important.
Completely agreed.
Oh yeah, it's definitely important.
Yeah, I think that as a developer, I don't mind pay to win titles. It's fine. The industry is so big that anything goes, really. Some of the most profitable games in the world right now are titles that probably nobody in the chat has ever heard of, and probably nobody in this call either, because it's probably some shooter played only in China or Korea that is making insane amount of money. That
they charge per bullet.
that nobody hears of because they're just played in those markets and they're popular only there. I think that what Elliot said right now is spot on, because who cares? Pay to win, don't play those games. You don't like those games, don't play them. But it's very true that there is a generation of gamers right now that is growing up playing free to play iPhone games, and a lot of them have these pay to win mechanics or these shortcut mechanics that are just we're really training a generation of gamers with, oh, you just spend $5 and your problem goes away, which is a dangerous lesson to teach a person, that they can just always find a shortcut, because life is not like that.
Yep, you just, if you got a problem, throw money at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's which, if somebody sometimes works, but if you don't have money and you're just like, and oftentimes even more subtle is the fact that a lot of these kids are growing up spending money that is not theirs, and so they run to their parents and are like, hey, please fix this issue for me. They put their credit card in and the issue is fixed.
They put it in the disk drive.
Yep.
which is it's a little bit dangerous. As a market as a whole, I'm not as concerned. I'm not as up in arms about it, even with the whole Star Wars thing. When everybody was like, oh, we need to regulate loot boxes. No, it was like, no, guys, can we please leave the government away from my games, please? Thank you, because they're going to mess it up. So I think that the market is going to reward titles that do well, and it's going to punish titles that don't.
Agreed. It's the gameplay.
But Elliot is right in the fact that we are growing a generation of gamers that are probably too used to pay to skip, which is a shame.
Yep. And the new Mario games, you literally you die enough times and they just give you an invincibility mushroom.
But I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with games doing that. I'm not okay with Dad, please, can you put $5 into my game? I can't progress. There you go, son. Thank you, Dad. You know, that I guess that leaves a mark somewhere
That's
in
true.
here that it's gonna bite you in the ass in the future.
Oh yeah,
Very true. Yeah.
You
that's
know,
definitely true. Huh.
I don't know.
But I would say, I guess there is a growing group of people, like you said, that actually enjoy pay to win games, because some people do, and that could have a negative impact on some of the parts of the community of this wanting the easy way out. You know, rather than grind and level up and get better at the game, which, like Elliot said, that's what games used to be. You know, and I would say, as somebody, I'm not in the industry. I'm a casual gamer. I'm passionate for games. But one thing I've noticed with the gaming community and games coming out, everything evolves, everything changes. You know, whether it be for better or for worse. And I, like you guys said, there might be parts of the community, as we all know it, that are changing for the worst, and it's up to us to either adapt or die off. You know what I mean? And it goes the same way for clothing, music. Unfortunately, it does. But also, you do kind of have to keep in hand that, like, people like Juan Paulo and Elliot are staying true to themselves, and there are still markets for those games that, you know, have that element to it.
The way I see it, because it's weird, because I don't like pay to win games, but when I play Hearthstone, the way I justify it, because it's a little bit different than those like disgusting, usually mobile games that literally let you pay to skip levels, for example, and just, you know, Hearthstone's less in your face about it. It is absolutely, you know, pay to win and certainly pay to have fun. But it's less in your face about it. The way I justify it is, you know, every couple months I could spend $60 in the new Call of Duty, or I could spend $50 on pre-ordering the next Hearthstone expansion. And to that regard, I'm okay with it. But any game that has like an energy system or has me skipping levels and stuff, I can't handle that at all. So I think that there's a bit of a difference. Yeah.
I think the thing that causes the most distaste in the audiences of these games, like, you can do the regret test, which is ask a person who spent $1,000 on Farmville or Hearthstone, like, do you regret having spent that money? Would you, if you could start the game over, still choose to spend that amount of money?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is no, then some kind of promise has been broken between the player and developer. Like, if the developer is sort of being deceptive by not really disclosing how much the game truly cost, or is putting offers in front of the player, and the player accepts those offers without really understanding what they're getting themselves into, then the player will experience regret. And regret teaches people to think differently when they go to start the next game. And you saw it with social games back on Facebook, when these games like Farmville, everybody was, you know, posting on their Facebook wall, "Oh, come help me." And the games were so viral, and they encouraged this viral spread via social sharing, and all of these envy mechanics that caused people to spend all this stuff, you know, so in Cityville you could have the nicest city and stuff like that. That's fallen off because a lot of the players that spent so much on those games experienced regret, and they thought, well, I'm not going to do this again with the next product. And I think you'll see the same thing with these free-to-play, pay-to-win games, where people will be a bit more shy about opening their wallets in the future if the game doesn't deliver the value that they feel they should obtain by spending that money. You know, if they experience regret, then it's going to be harder to monetize in that way in the future.
Yeah, that's very true. P in chat says, there's a problem for me when you pay full price for a game and find out that you can't do everything without paying extra.
Without the pride and accomplishment required.
Well, again, it comes down to regret. You know, if you purchase the game and you regret it because you have to pay more, then that's what it is.
Mm-hmm,
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
It's deceptive, but it drives me crazy that some games do that. But I think that there are ways to do it well. And personally, I gravitate towards games that are free to play that, you know, I think it's okay to, for example, sell things like additional civilizations or characters or something like that. Like, you can, even though I prefer the fact that in Dota 2 I can just play everybody, I think it's okay that in League of Legends I have to buy the characters and unlock them. Like, I think that's kind of fine. But I prefer my rewards to generally be cosmetic, is what I'm paying for. Because as a guy who plays a lot of these free to play games, what I like about Prismata, for example, and I don't know how you do it in Empires Apart without actually like crippling the gameplay. Like buying special hats and glowing shit for my units just to be
Oh,
obnoxious.
you'll see. You'll see.
He's got something planned.
Yeah,
He's got something
like-
planned.
you got some hats in store. All right, all
He's
right.
ready.
But
He's
if
ready.
but if you look at League, like they
Yeah.
had a major ARPU problem. Like in 2013, they had like, a $1.30 ARPU, whereas a game like World of Tanks is making 5 times that per user. Like, that's why Hex Tech crafting was introduced, is because they felt they weren't monetizing their audience as well as they otherwise could have. And even though League of Legends is seen as this great success, it could also be seen as something that could have easily made twice the revenue if it had a more aggressive monetization system. Like, you
I
could
don't
see
know.
it as being great design, but that, there's losses there.
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know if you're right or not. Just because who knows? But there is a case there for sure. And it's, I've had conversation with people with money about this, and usually people with money really crave that pay to win. Sort of like, oh, we need to do this because this, people we're gonna buy will want to buy stuff to win. It's like, no, guys, it's not like that. Oftentimes, or maybe it's not like that in this niche. You know what I mean? Maybe you're right. Maybe League of Legends, if it went pay to win, it would have been super successful, but maybe not in the West. Maybe it will just, be very successful in Asia and never reach the US. And US would have been the land of some other game.
The loot boxes didn't make it pay to win. The loot boxes, I'm actually not inherently against loot boxes as a system, but that is what they added. I just like games that allow me to buy skins and cosmetic items and flesh out my profile and really like show other players like I am this dedicated to this game. Like, hey, I backed this game on Kickstarter. I've got this badge. Like my units are shiny. I got the full medieval set and Prismata. I like that kind of stuff. League of Legends didn't turn pay to win with the loot boxes, but the loot boxes brought in a lot of revenue. They're almost sort of a necessary evil nowadays, and I think it really depends on how they're done. But it's like what Elliot said: like the player needs to be able to feel like they're getting value for what they paid for, because even though I don't have a problem pre-ordering my Hearthstone expansions, because again, I just justify it as, well, it's either this or I buy the next AAA game and I'd be disappointed. I think I get more value out of it. The value is dipping. Like when they raised the price of the pre-order, I'm getting fewer packs now, and it's like, is it actually worth it now?
Well, there's a lot of things that they've done that have been really insidious. Like in Hearthstone, they've increased the amount of legendaries per expansion.
Yeah.
Well, they've done, in Magic the Gathering, like when they introduced the higher tier of rarity. They do these things. They made rotation faster in Magic the Gathering, and then they took it out because people were upset about it. But like, there's constantly this pressure to monetize better, and products like League of Legends are seen as products that could have monetized better had they moved sooner on certain things. And those losses are real losses that people are chasing, right? They want to get the most out of their products. And when you have as huge an audience as something like League of Legends, there's both a risk in making a change that might alienate your audience, but there's also a huge risk in inaction, right? Inaction could be so costly if you could be doing so much better.
But there's also something that is kind of interesting that I would like to bring, that I always try to bring people's attention to, is that a lot of times gamers are in their own echo chamber, where they think things are a certain way and work a certain way and must be a certain way, otherwise they're going to fail or whatever, just because they don't have the full picture. And sometimes from the other side, the full picture is totally different. I'll give you an example. There is one game, I don't know if people know, it's called, damn it, it's made by Chair. It's a mobile game. It's called Infinity Blade.
I actually do know that game.
Yeah, it was one of the very first really good looking games on mobile.
Yep.
And a very interesting thing about the first Infinity Blade, it was a premium title, so you would need to spend like $5 to get it. And this game had a loot system, sort of like basically you got gold, then you could use gold to buy weapons and stuff like that. You progress. It's just all single player, okay? And at one point, they introduced the possibility of buying gold with real money. And when they did that, they said, we had to do it because gamers keep asking for it. We didn't want to do it, but the demand was so high that we had to do it. So sometimes we think that things should be a certain way, but in reality, there's a whole set of other players that want completely different stuff
Mm-hmm.
that somehow you have to listen to, or somehow they're like, we want to throw money at you. Do you want it or not?
Yeah.
And you're like, you're there scratching your head. You're like, it's hard. You know what I mean? So definitely there are certain insidious ways, like Elliot said, that you can be like, this might increase revenue by 2%. And 2% for them is like 20 millions. So it's like, yeah, let's throw one more legendary into the set. But sometimes certain weird things like, hey, why there's loot boxes now in this game? It's because maybe, when they do their focus tests or whatever, people are like,
they want it.
Can I open loot boxes? No. Do I want loot box? Can I have loot box? Because they have that crave that we might not necessarily think it's a even logical to have in a game. Like, why would Star Wars need loot box? I don't get
that. That threw me
I
off.
kind of like it for cosmetics, but there's a fine line. There's a fine line.
Absolutely.
Something I've always wanted to do. I've wanted to create a free-to-play game where all of the loot boxes were for cosmetics, but it would be a game where the cosmetics actually really helped you win. Like, say it was a camouflage game where you really had to hide, and the most expensive army camo would cost a ton, and you go into the store and it would say, cosmetics only, not pay to win, asterisk, cosmetics may actually help you win.
Write this down, guys. This is like Dark Souls of racing. This is good shit.
They're not
this is 2019.
Oh my god, you can overcharge the colorblind people because they can't win otherwise. So you're colorblind, son.
Cosmetic only.
That's messed up.
But for $49.
Yeah, I do want to ask you guys a question. We kind of touched on it. Prime example is the culling. Where do you guys feel as game developers there is the perfect mix and the right point to either? I mean, culling, listen to the community like none other, and that's the thing. As a developer, you guys want to listen to your communities and kind of get, what they want, what they like, what they dislike, what's working, what's not working, what should they change, what should you keep? What do you think the perfect mix of that is? And have you guys experienced that yet? Because I'm pretty sure project community say, hey, we like this about your game. We don't like this about your game. Where's the point where you say, you know what, enough is enough. I still want to keep my game true to what I want to create, and I don't want to become this whole different breed, this whole different monster.
I mean, I can speak to that. I think there's sort of two types of feedback we elicit from our community. One is when everybody's really loud about one thing, they say, we want this thing. We definitely hear that, and we definitely take that into account when we're deciding what we're going to work on, what features we add. We also mine stats and have analytics and all that stuff. But the other thing we do is when we have a design question and we don't know the answer, which way we should go, we ask players, we get people in to try something out that's sort of experimental. I'll go on stream and talk to the people in the chat, just to sort of poke and get random opinions from the people that are actually playing your game to help you make better design decisions, I think is highly valuable, especially when you're on a small team and it's I can ask the other few guys at the company, but their viewpoint is going to be very similar to mine because they're developers.
It's going to be very biased,
I want a more diverse set of viewpoints. And if I have a community that I can ask, or, just post questions in Discord or screenshots or whatever, it's great as just a very quick source of feedback.
Okay. All right. And what about you without one, Paul?
I did a whole presentation about this. This is a topic, we could discuss for hours because it's very hard. It's the thing is, the truth is that there is a certain goal, a certain vision that you have to have from the start, and that the community cannot change, because if you allow the community to change the vision that you had for the game, then it's not really your vision. Then it becomes somebody else's vision, and you're executing on it, and so you're gonna botch it. It's not gonna be your game. It's gonna be, you're trying to make this Frankenstein of things that you probably maybe don't even like in the end. We had people come in very early into development asking essentially to turn our game into a settlers-like game, or a war game in the sense of like a total war. And if we had listened to those people, let's say 200 people came in with the same request, we wouldn't have made Empires Apart. It would have been another game, and it would have been our game, and it would have been weird. So there's a certain trajectory that you have to keep going forward in. Then there are different kind of feedback that you can take in. So you can take in balanced feedback, which is sort of like 5% of your game in a way. I know that Elliot's going to disagree, but just bear with me. Bear with what I'm trying to say. In a box product on your shell that the guy that knows nothing about your game is going to buy, whether the game is balanced or not, is just, is it balanced? Yes. Okay, good. They're going to chime in on that a lot, but they're going to chime in on certain philosophies of the game, and then that you have to be very careful with. They're going to chime in on the style of your game. For example, let's say a lot of people came in with saying like, "Oh, I don't like the art style. I can change that, because the art style is hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff that I cannot change because some people don't like it in chat." You know what I mean? So it's very, very, very difficult to balance the two. I say that the community can influence about 30% of your game. 70 has to be you, simply because of the way things work. But they can be incredibly helpful in a lot of ways in finding why your game does not work or making your game better. They can be really invaluable. So I don't know. It's a difficult balance, I would say.
Like my point of view is different on that because of the following. Like, a lot of people come at game development as a form of art, where you're making an artistic expression, and the decisions you make are sort of artistic decisions where there's no right or wrong answer. And my team is a bunch of guys from MIT, and they are like super analytical, and they want to make decisions with numbers and data and metrics and optimize. And we have our design pillars, which are, make the ultimate strategy game, make the most interesting strategy game where you have the highest number of interesting strategic decisions, and it's fun to play as a strategy game. And we can evaluate design decisions based on those goals. And there are things that we know as game developers that are not in the knowledge base of our game players. And so sometimes their opinions are just, misinformed because they don't really know how the sausage is made.
Right.
But when we want to judge whether or not our designs are having a positive impact on the goals that we have set for us, which is, we want players to enjoy the game in this way and to like these types of interactions, we can query our community for obtaining that information, which we then use as a source for our analytical decision making. But for something like art, we're a gameplay first company. We want to make the visuals in our game like make you the best player possible and allow you to play blitz and allow you to parse the game board as fast as possible. And, aesthetic preferences and design are all sort of secondary to those goals. So like that's the way we make our decisions, and that's because we are this type of company developing our type of product. But it's so different for games that are more works of art than what our game is.
Yeah, they're definitely two different types. And that's where community managers come in.
Yeah. Sorry, Rice. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nah, don't worry.
No, the other thing that I was trying to say is just it's not only art. It's also like there's a lot of money behind it, and there's a lot of milestones and dates and the publisher asking you for certain things that the players don't necessarily need. That all comes down into we have to balance this thing and try to make everybody happy, and it's hard.
That's true.
It's more difficult when you add the publisher as sort of a third party.
Yes.
Like for us, it's just between us and our developers, and we can look what is the optimal decision for the game. Whereas the publisher and you could have motivations that are there's just a distance between your motivations. So suddenly you have that conflict. And we're fortunate enough to just not have that conflict because of the way our company is set up. But, we make the decision that's best for the game. And that's why it's taken forever to come out. But, it's the consequence we live with.
I do have a question. Now that you talked about publishers, seeing you as you're developing the game, and then a publisher comes into the picture, how do what kind of impact do they have on the overall creation of your game?
It varies. I mean, in our case, they've been very, very good into letting us do our own thing. I can't speak well enough of Slytherin. They've been amazing to us. They essentially brought us on board, and they told us, okay, you know what you're doing, do your game. They obviously have certain demands, and they obviously, especially when it comes to time and money. But when it comes to the kind of game that we're trying to make, they've been super positive. They're also super helpful, and they bring in their own perspective and expertise when it comes to certain decisions. I don't know if I can talk about this, but there are certain things that the players don't necessarily know that they know because they see the back end of it, and they might say, "Oh, let's not do this, let's do that," and you're like, "Why?" And they show you why. And it's like, "Oh, okay, cool. I wouldn't have known." For example, when it comes to patches or DLCs or stuff like that.
It's a mixed bag, basically. It depends from publisher to publisher.
Yeah, it depends from publisher to publisher. We've been very fortunate, but there are some horror stories out there, or there are publishers that just shell out money to companies. It really, really varies. And publisher can be very opinionated on your game. They can come in and change it. Definitely, we get feedback on our game. Sometimes we arm wrestle with them about stuff, but in general, they trust us, and that's good. But that can change. Not for us. I mean, that can change with other publishers. I might go to another publisher tomorrow, and they might be like, "Oh, we need you to. Okay, you're making a new RTS. Cool. We want the loot boxes. So figure it out. We want loot boxes into the game, or we want
hats.
We want hats. We want the monetization to be like this, okay? And so then you're like, oh my god, what can I do? So it's so it really varies. We've been lucky. I've heard horror stories. There are publishers, and right now there are very different kinds of publishers as well. You have the publisher that just helps you come out, with the marketing and stuff, and you have the publisher that follows you from the beginning. So it really varies, but I think they are a very good part of our industry and a very necessary part of our industry. Some people don't give them enough credit, but publishers are the good thing that I would say about publishers compared to, say, people in Hollywood at the very high end, which I don't know anything about, but follow me on this, is that this industry is so young that people like me, in 20 years from now, will probably be on the other side, and so we know the struggle. We know what making games is like. Slytherin was a developer before, and now is a publisher, so they know the struggle. When you tell them, "Oh, there's a bug," they're not like, "I don't care." They're like, "Oh yeah, I know." So you know what I mean. So it really varies, but I think they're a very good part of this industry, and they allow for many games to come out and be good.
Okay. All right. And I'm not gonna lie, that helped a lot I think there was a lot of people and that really didn't know what they really do.
I think the biggest aspect that you sort of didn't mention that much is because of the way game development is right now, developing a game is inherently extremely financially risky. Like, we making Prismata could lose hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in this game, right? Like, we have no idea. And publishers provide a means of controlling for that risk and absorbing the variance. I mean, they take their rake to eat that variance. But that allows products to be made that wouldn't otherwise be financially viable for small studios that cannot tolerate the amount of risk required to release a product like Empires Apart.
Yeah, that is true.
And we have oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying, so Lunark is self-publishing Prismata, but our financial backing comes from a network of mostly poker players who were with us from the start, and they don't know anything about game design, right? They're just financing us. So, we have that luxury of the sort of riskiness of game development has been reduced because, uh, we have an external source of funding. But at the same time, we've had to learn so many things on our own that a publisher would have been able to help us if they were an actual industry publisher rather than just a source of financing.
Okay.
And the publisher helps you, like you said, you were saying like what the publisher does. Publisher does a billion things, and depends on the studio, depends on the publisher. But potentially the publisher can help you with a billion different things that is not just putting out money and marketing the product. There's a lot of stuff in between that people don't even consider a lot of times. Like, for example, handling relationships with platform holders. So I don't know anybody at Steam, but Slytherin does. So if there's a problem with Steam, they have that connection. They can handle that for us. If whatever the game is down or there's an issue, they can talk it out, and we can't, and they do that. So a lot of stuff that people don't necessarily consider.
Oh, and ratings and localization and
Right.
and yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have a question for everybody here. And I think this is a really cool question because it's going to allow some insights for a lot of casual gamers and people that aren't in game development or in the industry or don't have knowledge of it. As a developer, what do you feel the average gamer doesn't understand about the development process, pre and post?
Go ahead, Elliot.
Go ahead. I actually think that the average gamer has a pretty good idea of what's going on. If they're like a serious gamer that follows the development of a lot of games, sometimes they don't really understand how long stuff takes. And people say, why don't we have this new feature yet? It's because there's like 3 of us working on the game, and it's hard. Oh, how come your servers aren't always up 24/7? It's because even the biggest studios with massive IT budgets can't predict the future and don't know everything that will go wrong. I think people underestimate the difficulty of making games, and not everybody. It's just that select few of very vocal community members who are, suffering from Dunning-Kruger syndrome and are sitting up there on Mount Stupid thinking they know how it works. But it's I think most people actually on average have a pretty good idea of what's going on. And it's just, there's a few people that are loud and don't know anything.
I wouldn't say a few. I would say hundreds. I mean, if you check Twitter out and you see these people talking about games, like Resident, speak on it, man. Speak on it. You
maybe I'm just lucky and I have the greatest community ever. I don't know.
There you go. There, you've been blessed.
I did a terrible job introducing myself, but I have been in the games industry now for 3+ years, and even though I'm not releasing a title, I can speak to great volume on the impact of publishers, for example, and the importance of community feedback and sticking to those pillars. That's literally why community managers like myself exist, is that we are given a list of pillars, and then we collect feedback, and we are the filter basically that determines is this feedback that we're receiving, does this align with Elliot's pillars for the game? Is this worth bringing up to him? And then we build that discussion. I think since as a community manager, I deal directly with them, and I talk to everyone at an individual level. And I have a fairly unique style in that I try to be more boots on the ground than a lot of community managers that just hide in the corner and do copy pasted responses to the best of their abilities. And they force. There are a lot of companies that do this, and they try and force the discussion to be in their home turf, and they hide from any sort of community hub that appeared that wasn't completely controlled by them. I try not to do that. I try to be a boots in the ground, approachable style guy. I would say that the most players just don't understand what goes into game development and just how difficult it is and how many facets that there actually are to it. And this comes in so many forms. Like, there are very few players in the Age of Empires community that truly understand why Age of Empires 2 HD Edition or Age of Mythology Extended Edition has so many bugs and why they haven't been fixed. But I know. So, but it's like what Elliot said. The average gamer thinks they know. Like, they think they know balance better than the development team. And that's not always the case. There are so many factors at play, and one I wanted to point out is stakeholders as a concept in game development that the average player does not understand. And this is extremely relevant if you have a publisher and a lot less relevant if you don't. There are some people in your company that are just going to want the game to be a certain way, or outside your company, like as a publisher. And people internally will disagree about the direction of the game. Like, the community manager will bring in feedback, and then no one will know what to do with it. And these stakeholders can be really insistent on things. So basically, game development takes a lot longer than people think it does, and even simple issues. This is the thing that I go back to Hearthstone as a great example. Like, even simple issues that appear simple are nothing is simple in game development. It's always harder than it seems. And again, that's why I am personally excited for games like Empires Apart and Prismata, because they are willing to actually delay the game to address those issues rather than be like, just ship it. Because that is the attitude in the industry today, is just ship it. Patch it later.
Well, I think that that the issue of stakeholders applying pressure, like, I come from a background of software development startups, and there's this thing called the agile development methodology, which is you have a small team working on a project with sort of a defined scope that grows over time, and you rapidly iterate. And games like Prismata were developed under that methodology, whereas games like Hearthstone were not. And there is a difference in, like, how rapidly you can iterate just because you're using a different software development methodology. Now, granted, Hearthstone has to localize every bit of card text and voice line into a bunch of languages. Like, there are barriers to rapid iteration. But, like, I think most of the issues with, Hearthstone rebalances things so slowly, like, those are for the reasons that Rez said, but they have more to do with the game's business model than a failure of the developers to be able to iterate quickly.
Yeah, there are some things in Hearthstone that they could have absolutely fixed a lot quicker and just took a long time not to, due to certain pillars that they have that are not aligned with some of the more vocal community hubs, but they have to deal with a very broad player base. But there's some seemingly,
it's so risky for them, because
definitely.
they were a game that was printing so much money at a time when nobody else was printing money in that specific way that they were. And to make any change that might anger their player base or reduce their revenue or just, you don't want to mess with a good thing. So if Prismata is making tons and tons of money and people say, oh, you need to nerf this card, like, it's really hard to justify a change in your approach to, say, card balance in Hearthstone when the game's making so much money, because there's not a whole lot of upside and there's a whole lot of downside.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I thought long and hard about an answer to your question, and I'm glad that Elliot and Resonance gave brilliant answers, because they allowed me to think. I think that if your question is what they don't understand, is different than what they don't know, and they definitely, the average gamer doesn't know.
It's what they don't know.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah.
But no. But I'm gonna answer as what they don't understand.
Okay.
They don't know a lot of what goes into making a video game, and there's a lot that goes on to making a video game. For example, last day on stream, I just showed the difficulty of exporting a square from Photoshop into the game and making it right, and all of the clicks that it requires, because it seems easy, right? Oh, there's a square in Photoshop, taking into the game. No, export it, blah 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 blah. But and sometimes it's frustrating, even with, like, people from your community. Is like, guys, you see how hard it is. Why do you keep asking for whatever? But I think that what the average gamer doesn't understand and probably they will never will, is how much these games mean to the people making them.
Yep.
In a lot of ways that people will never see. People will never know exactly what Empires Apart means to me, to to the co-founder of the company, Simone, to all of the people that touched this game and made this game, because of all of the things that are behind this, all of the struggle, the families that have helped people making it. There's so much that people don't understand, but it's sort of like a baggage that you have with you every day making the game. Every day making the game, I have sort of like this backpack of things that this game means to me, and I know what's going to happen if this game succeeds, and I know what's going to happen if this game fails. And that pressure is on me alone, and people will never understand it. They might know how hard it is to animate a character, but they don't understand what that animation means to me and why I'm spending so much time on it. Or why today I'm working on something and not something else, or why I'm stressed out and stuff like that. And I'm not making this a, crybaby of like, oh, making game is hard. Making game is hard, but it's not, it's just, but this is something that people will never understand, and that's fine.
Well, that's why I wish that people would leave nicer comments generally when it comes to these things, because on the internet, again, it's like what Elliot said,
it's like the Wild West out there.
Yeah, people say some really, really nasty crap to game developers, and as a community manager, I have to read it. And one thing I found, and one of the reasons why I do the boots on the ground approach, and the way I run my live stream and my YouTube channel, is that people tend to get really angry when they think that you're not listening. So I try to give as much of an impression as possible that yes, someone is listening. The hard part for me then is like taking all that feedback and actually making sure something gets done about that. But people care more that just someone out there is listening. And I do wish that gamers on the internet were nicer to development teams in general and gave them more credit rather than being like, this guy who has 20 years of experience in the industry doesn't know how to balance for shit. He is stupid. And I'm like, what? He should be fired. And I'm like, what? No.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the one thing I want to bring. I have 2 points. I do want to thank you, Juan Paulo, for bringing that up and bringing the more, I guess, personalized emotional side to what developers do go through. Because a lot of people don't know or either don't care. I mean, you have, like you said, you have this backpack on of everything you need to take care of: your friends, your family, your financial well-being, your mental well-being, everything you need to take care of. And people come along and they just honestly shit on developers because they think they know better. And it like Resident said, it's crazy how people do that. And I've never understood. Yeah, like I said, someone's upset, but to the point where they tell someone they need to go die or they have the worst game ever.
Should be fired.
You should be fired. Like that's what they don't wait, what? Because this card wasn't balanced with this card, or this gun doesn't work the way you want to, someone should be fired. And I feel like there are parts of the game community who become more callous and more jaded to game developers. I mean, you see it towards content creators, towards streamers, YouTubers, towards anybody who creates some type of content. People have become more callous and jaded. They look at you like a circus monkey, and this is how you should do it when I want you to do it. If you can't do it how I want you to do it, then you are
real
done.
talk.
And I'm just like, and I've seen that, and I don't understand it, because I myself have empathy and compassion for, you guys putting out your blood, sweat, and tears and thousands of dollars in time into these games. And I feel like, and this is kind of goes hand in hand with customer service. I could rant all day about customer service. In customer service, people will say the customer is always right. I feel like that's wrong, because if I'm the business and I'm supplying you with a product that you're willing to pay money for, you get what I'm saying? You guys are creating products that people are willing to take their hard-earned money and give it to you guys for a product. They should be thankful. They should be like, oh my, thank you so much for making something that I'm willing to put my money, my time into. Thank you. And people don't think that way. People think it's the other way around, like, oh, I have dollars, I'm gonna wave at you, do a backflip, you're a monkey, and do what I want you to do. And it's just like, wow, it blows my mind,
That's why I try to
something.
offer a unique perspective, through all my time in the industry, that it is not as easy as people think. And I just wish that people would have a more respectful discourse.
I think that something that creates a lot of tension is a lot of the business models, especially in AAA, but free to play card games and like that, they necessitate a little bit of doublespeak when the developers are communicating with the community, because they don't want you to know how much it really costs to make the best decks of the game or how many packs you're going to have to open. They don't want that front and center when the discussion of the game is being had. And Hearthstone doesn't want to talk about the fact that one of the reasons why they're hesitant to nerf the cards too much is because of its effect on the monetization of the game, and the fact that they're destroying the value that people have put in when they've crafted cards, and the fact that they have to refund the dust and all of these different things that go into it. And so you get these sort of accusations that the developers are hiding something, and in many cases they are. Whereas in a game like Prismata, we can buff and nerf units without changing the things that people bought, because they don't have to buy the units of the game. So I am able to have conversations with my player base that are completely heart to heart, where I can educate them on the balanced decisions that we've had to make and why we've made them that way, and take them through the process that we've used to come to those balanced decisions. And I can freely say, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we should do a rebalance. I'm going to take a look at the stats and we'll see. Whereas in Hearthstone, those types of heart-to-heart conversations can't happen, because there's this layer of doublespeak that needs to be maintained in order to prevent the money from being talked about too much, because it's something that the developers have to hide. And it's the same thing you saw with EA, and their community management team did such a horrible job. And like a lot of the developers that people think have good community management teams, it's not even that. It's that the developer is operating under a business model where they don't need to have doublespeak all the time. And people misinterpret that as, oh, these have a wonderful community teams and are so wonderful to their players. And it's not that at all. It's just the business model necessitates it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm going to say CM made a good point. He says the thing is, there are just as many happy people as unhappy. It's just that the unhappy ones go and they definitely make their voice known. And I mean, I could only imagine being a developer and always hearing negative stuff, always hearing negative stuff. And you have to trudge through that mess and keep on powering on to fulfill your vision. And I personally think, I mean, the game community, we need to do a better job of praising developers like you guys, of saying, hey, good job. We enjoy this. The positive needs to outshine the negative, and I think games will definitely benefit from that. Community-wise.
I think that negative feedback, and in particular bug reports, and like we have a button in the game where you complain about the balance, right? And I actually think that the reports and the emails I get via that button are a very good proxy for the actual negative experiences that people are having within the game. And, in software development, you often develop software in order to minimize bug reports, because you assume that if you reduce the number of bug reports, then you're reducing the number of negative experiences of the users of your software. And that's the approach we take to our game. Like our goal is literally make people complain less, because we assume that's what's going to make them happiest. And I think that the way our game works allows us to do that in ways that maybe some other types of games or business models can't really afford to.
Yeah. All right, this is personally my last question, and this is a question I've always been wondering. Every streamer, YouTuber, anybody out there interested in having a working relationship or open lines of communication with developers wants to know, from a person that works in the industry, Juan Paulo and everybody else here, what do you think companies are looking for in content creators? Because there's been,
I mean, now it's weird, because there's a lot of companies and there's a lot of content creators. But content creators now are the way to go in a lot of ways. Companies aren't chasing journalists anymore, because gaming journalism is getting more and more relevant by the day, and YouTubers and content creators are getting more and more relevant by the day.
Yes.
It's difficult, but if I could give a personal suggestion to a content creator, I would say niche. Find your niche and become the king of that niche. And here's why. There can only be so many PewDiePies, but there's only one Resonance22. And if I'm making an RTS, I need to go to Res. You know, if you are a AAA company and you're dealing with AAA titles, then you have to you need to try to shoot for all the big YouTubers with millions of subscribers. But there's a lot of YouTubers that have their niche and they have a very dedicated audience, because that's the thing. It's not as much as how big is your audience, but how dedicated and how what is the quality of your audience. For example, Total Biscuit is very popular, but it's not super popular. He doesn't have millions and millions of views. He has hundreds of thousands of views, but usually his videos translate into sales. Usually speaking, because his audience is a young adult. No, not young adults, but I'm talking about like say 20 to 30 people that have money to spend on PC games. And so when he reviews a game, tends to translate into sales. So so it's hard to tell a YouTuber to find your niche, because sometimes that means that you will get not many views for a long time. But a company like Slytherin is looking for some YouTubers, not all YouTubers. They won't even bother contacting the big ones. There are some big ones that cover strategy games, but who cares? I mean, if tomorrow PewDiePie makes a video about Empires Apart, I won't spit on it. But I don't know how many sales that would move. You know what I mean? Maybe a lot, but maybe Total Biscuit comparatively will move a lot more units than a video from, say, a bigger YouTuber with millions of views, but just people that don't buy. For example, one of the biggest YouTuber in Italy is a guy called Favi. Doesn't really matter. He's a gamer YouTuber. His audience is 13 years old to 16 years old, okay? He is probably one of the biggest channels in Italy. His audience doesn't buy games. So I know developers that had their games on his channel, and they told me 2 more sales that day. 2. Not 2, wow. Not 20, not 200. 2 more sales that day. And that video had like 200,000 views.
Dang. So
you know what I mean?
Yeah, so numbers don't always translate into sales.
No, not at all. Not at all. Selling a game is getting harder and harder because more games are coming out. So if I can come to you and you're a YouTuber that covers strategy games, and I know that your audience is hungry for strategy games, then a company like Slytherin would want to work with you.
Okay. So I mean that's really good from your perspective. You know, numbers don't always matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, it does matter how many subscribers or viewers or subs, followers you have, but that community needs to be, I guess, buyers, is what you're saying.
That is actually one of the jobs of a community manager, and one of the things that I did at Outpost Games, and that's why community managers again exist, is that not only do we collect feedback and attempt to identify solutions, trends, etc., but we also have to identify influencers that present value. And it's exactly like Gianpaolo said. You're looking for people who have audiences that would actually be engaged with your product, not just the raw numbers. And it's not the number of followers; it's the quality and the interest that they have. And that's why I love my viewer base so much, because while I might not be the largest channel on YouTube, my viewer base is really engaged, and I treasure it.
Let me tell you one of the things we do, because we publish our own products. So let me tell you exactly what we do when searching for influencers. Okay, I wrote a bot. The bot queries the Twitch API all the time and determines who are the most popular streamers playing a bunch of products that we consider relevant strategy games in a similar category. And they would include RTSs, card games, you name it. At the end of a month or so, I have a giant table full of data, and I can see for each streamer, like, which of the games did you play? How many people were watching for how many hours? And I can run my formulas and magic on that, but I can extract from that a candidate list of influencers that we consider people playing the types of games that we care about, that have a decent enough audience size. But I even look at people down in the low hundreds worth of average views on Twitch as being people that I will contact. Maybe I'm not going to sponsor them, but I'm definitely going to send them keys. I'm going to if they want to become interested in my game, then I'm willing to do that. I'll tweet at them, I'll do whatever. In terms of actual sponsorships, like, my candidate list is drawn from that bigger list, and I'm looking at the people with sort of, I would say, usually 500 to 3,000 concurrents. And any larger than that, they have to have a very specific audience that is going to love our game. Like somebody like Kriparian or Total Biscuit, maybe. But even then, like Kriparian played our game, made a video about it, and he tends to get like 20 to 30,000 concurrents on Twitch. But a lot of his audience is very young. They just like to post memes in the chats. They're not really going to buy or play games that aren't Hearthstone or Blizzard games. And we're aware of that, but at the same time, like, it's very difficult to estimate what streamer is going to translate into sales. And so for us, like, if we have a budget to spend on influencers, somebody like Rez is a very good candidate because, we know that his audience is like a group of hardcore strategy game fans. And there's actually not that many like other sort of small to medium-sized channels that aren't just like Hearthstone and memes or League of Legends and memes and stuff like that. Like people who are actually serious about technical strategy games. And so we more or less just know who they all are, and we talk to them. We're going to send them keys and probably host tournaments with streamers and and we try to find ways to create value for the streamers too. Like we have within our game a way to see who's streaming Prismata at any time, and streamers find new audiences by playing our game because our game links to their stream. So like we want to encourage streamers to play our game. We even have streamer features within the game that make it easier to like move the units out of the way so you can have a face cam and stuff like that.
That's what I meant when I said feature complete. I mean, my goodness. And thank you.
Well, that was a big concern that came out when people started streaming the game. They're like, I can't put my face cam on because it's obscuring the units. So we found a solution to that. It came up, and honestly, I added that solution in like half an afternoon. It wasn't hard to do. Maybe it would be hard to do for a game like Hearthstone because there's so much other tech going on behind the scenes, but they have their own solution to that problem.
Yep, that's very true. Well, those are all my questions for you guys. I'm all questioned out. If anybody in chat has any questions they would like to aim at these guys, lovely guys on the podcast, definitely do that as of now. But I mean, thank you guys for being here. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Juan Paulo, Elliot, Residents?
While we're waiting for the questions to pour in due to the stream delay, a couple things I want to say is that one, I hope all you that are watching this actually follow GlitchSythe. Like, he is sick today, and he is just a wonderful professional, like, just bundle of joy. I love working with him. I met him through Outpost Games. Everyone here should actually follow his stream. And he's sick today, so if you've been enjoying the stream so far, imagine what happens when he's not sick. It's sick. Similarly,
it's sick. Okay.
Similarly, I encourage you all to actually follow both Empires Apart and Prismata on Twitter and their respective pages to follow development, and that I will also be releasing. I already have like a really in-depth tutorial on Prismata, but I'll also be doing content on both of these games. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about, because we didn't get to talk about their features at all, really, that much. These games are cool. I will TLDR the people in the chat, because if anyone actually gets to the end of this podcast, then they can leave like a code word in your video comments on YouTube, like pancake or something like that. Prismata, my slogan with it is, it just works. Like, it just works. It's hard to get into, so I recommend that many of you wait till Steam Early Access, which is coming soon, and play the campaign. I think the campaign will be a great way to get people in the game, but the game just works. The way RNG is handled in Prismata is basically perfect. Everyone has access to the same base set of units, and then there is a random set of extra units that both players have access to. It's fantastic. My main concern with the game going into it initially is it was like, well, I mean, isn't there going to be objectively a correct play every turn, and the game is going to become just too solvable, and that player 1 or player 2 would inevitably win every set, depending on what random units are present. And that is true. But what I learned from playing so much of the game, from watching so much of it too, is that the decision tree, they managed to design it in a way that it is so unbelievably complex that it's not a problem. And for that, I am hyped as shit for the game, and you should be too. They created a game where the RNG is not bullshit, and the decision tree is somehow so complex that you just can't calc all that. Like, it's not actually solvable. That is why I respect that. Also, it's that you can counter strategies too. And there's no like objective. There are objectively good openings, but the fact that in Prismata you come in there, your opponent opens up with something, oh, you can switch up your opening and actually beat him. That's really important to me, that Prismata actually has counterplay, and those were two main concerns that could have destroyed the game. If it was easily solvable and that it was just about picking the most optimal build order and not interacting with your opponent, the game is counterplay. With Empires Apart, it also just works. It's exactly what you want it to be. God damn, I've been waiting so long for this for no reason whatsoever. Why did it take so long? I would love to know. Prismata, I get. It is a complex, truly unique idea. And Empires Apart is a unique game, but what happened? Why is this? Gianpaolo just gets it, is what I want the message to be. This is a true classic RTS games and feels exactly like it should. It's immediately obvious that it is. It has all the pillars, all the essentials, and it's refreshing. It also deviates in the right areas and maintains what makes those games so great. I am a firm believer that the RTS genre is not dead. Companies just stopped releasing RTS games like they used to. They are not good for casual players anymore. They require insane APM, they have simplified economies, a huge emphasis on micro and skill shots, and are catered purely towards esports. Empires Apart, it just makes you feel at home. And when things may stumble in Prismata and in Empires Apart, what matters to me is that the pillars are right. And mistakes will happen. And they can only be solved if the pillars work. And in both the games, the pillars work. And that's why I support them. And I also really like that they value feedback. So yeah, now you can take the questions. Boom, I did my pitch.
Thank you.
I love being a community manager.
Let me go.
This guy needs a job, by the way, if anybody's listening.
Yes, he needs a job. And as you can tell, he's great at his job. So there you go. Let's go through some of these questions real quick. So we got says Gino, how are you so handsome all the time? That's a question.
I don't know. Doctors hate me. You know, have pop-ups. It's like doctor hates this guy. It's like all shredded. Yeah, that's
doctors just hate him. Nice.
That's how I found Empires Apart. Actually, the pop-up.
I don't know what you're googling, my dude.
How to get,
I don't want to know.
I don't know where you at, man. I'm glad you found the game.
Okay.
And then Elliot, what's the stuff on your bookshelf behind you?
Yeah. So when I set up this shelf,
any good nerd has a good bookshelf.
I wanted the ultimate nerd backdrop for streaming and stuff just like this. So this is all my nerd stuff, and like I even have more of it up here. Like here's one of these Burr puzzles and
nice
and complicated 3D geometric things, assembly disassembly puzzles. There's board games. There's a lot of dexterity toys.
You see how well framed his webcam is, guys?
And there's a Diablo back there. There's actually a trophy that we won at PAX for being the best. I don't know, a Winner Is You award for people who for Curse really loving our game, and this fancy origami, and it's just like a nerd shelf. It's nice. Basically there so that people will ask questions about it. That's all.
And it has
there for.
And it has a
and every like quality gamer nerd has one. I have one too, and that's my biggest regret with not having a webcam is I can't show you all my bookshelf yet, but soon.
I don't have a bookshelf.
I have one in front of me, I swear.
GlitchSythe, you gotta green screen in one somehow.
Because the thing is, everybody has one, and I'm not gonna lie, they look really cool. They look fancy. You got the lighting. One Polish showing his off right now, and all I got is a green screen and white wall behind me. So I need to get one. What is everybody's New Year's resolutions?
Oh boy,
to get my goddamn trailer done.
Finish the game. I don't know. Take better care of myself because development is killing me.
That's mine too.
That's a thing. That's a thing.
Take care of yourself mentally and physically. That is a huge part.
Yeah.
The last 10% is the other 90% of the work.
It's very true.
Yeah, I need to take better care of myself too. Is my New Year's resolution. Like at the end of the year, I mean, man, I was getting all the work done, but like internally, I was just juggling way too much in my life, and I was really struggling. So right now, it's my New Year's resolution is a quest to not only find a new job but kind of find myself. And I'm flattered, by the way, all the people in the comments who are saying they'd love to see me cast a Prismata tournament or Empires Apart tournament. I can't wait to get some coaching from like a Booch or somebody, and just, dude, I'd love to do that. I'd love to get some coaching from Adney. Oh yeah.
Oh man. Oh
Oh
no.
yeah. It's coming. It's coming.
Oh no.
I used to be okay at Prismata, honestly, but I'm just like so rusty now. It's like hilarious. Like I have a 14-page like note document. Like I just like watch all your streamers and just like take notes on things, like ask them questions. But now I'm like super rusty. So
Do you have that note document? We're writing a guide for new players, and I'm really interested to know like what people think are the salient strategic points of the game.
I gotta dig through it. Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to help in any way. I mean, my goal. Look, okay, my agenda is very straightforward. I want to play good games because good games are fun and they make me happy. So anything I can do to make more good games happen sounds great.
All right.
Like
oh no, go for it, Elliot. Go for it.
Yeah,
Man.
no, here's something that's cliche as it sounds, but like one of the reasons I really want Prismata to succeed is because, you know, if we have a good start when we launch on Steam, we will be able to like continually sponsor tournaments and you know, casters and influencers to support the game, right? Like, you know, we have a marketing budget, but at the same time, if stuff's working really well to grow the game, then we can just keep throwing stuff at it. And it's all about how big can we get the community and get the game. And you know, so it's like we're trying to get everybody on board to help us as much as possible, and we want, you know, like people who stream the game and play the game, they stand to benefit when the game grows itself too, right? Like if you make YouTube content about Prismata, then you want Prismata to do well, so you get lots of views on your YouTube content too, right? So
oh god, Elliot, I found it. Oh god, so I am a gigantic so I'm a gigantic game nerd, and I love to cast games and study them more so than I play them. Like, you know, when I was really into Duelist, I was just like watching streams and just taking notes and everything. And I actually, I still have my Prismata notes document. This is not a good new player tutorial. When the game comes out, I'm going to. This is just like my everything important that I think a streamer said on stream that I should probably remember. And when the game comes out, though, I will do like a really good tutorial. I just need to get back in the groove of things.
yeah, one of our goals designing the game is to make that document as long as possible.
I think my video tutorial is pretty good. My actual document to you would not be that useful, but it might be interesting to see from like a new player perspective. Like whenever like, you know, Arcanishu says something, like what did I think was the most important thing he just said. I'm reading a quote. Arcanishu92 mentions that you really can't stop Amparilla without a conduit. Okay, write that down.
I do have a question. We got one from, I'm gonna call you PH because I can.
Wait. G, what's your New Year's?
Oh, mine? Honestly, mine is just be better. Like I mean, I'm doing this for the ground up. I want to be a better host. I want to get better at podcasting. I have another podcast coming up. I just want to be a better content creator. And 2018 is going to be a year that I branch out. Like, so I have a cop over my mouth, but it's always been like, you know, I've stuck to one game. I role play in GTA and Arma, and that's the safe place to be. But how do I know what I truly want to do if I don't try everything? So 2018 is the year I do YouTube. I want to start doing game reviews. I want to start doing deep dives in games on YouTube. I want to put out another podcast about movies and TV shows on SoundCloud. This is going to be a lot of stuff, man. And take care of myself physically because I'm trying to get an 18 pack, if you know what I mean.
Well said. Well said.
just like Gianpaolo and the pop-up ads that are all over the internet.
Yep.
And by the way, for my viewers who watch this later, can you see why I like GlitchSythe so much? Like, we see eye to eye on like everything, man. And I have the exact same set of goals as him. You know, like Age of Empires is my safe space, for example. But you know, man, I'd love to branch out. I will always still be doing Age of Empires, but like, I wanna explore a bit, and that's why I like this podcast so much. I think it's sick, and that's why I brought all these people here, and that's why I'm so glad that Gianpaolo and Elliot actually agreed to just do this, and
I'm glad.
And so many of you have stayed and watched. Thank you all so much for watching.
Yes,
and supporting the podcast. Like, and the channel, all these games, the content creators, the individuals. Thank you. You're all awesome.
One question is, I think it's a pretty interesting question. What do you guys do on your off time when you're not developing your game?
There's not a lot of time.
I was about to say,
yeah,
like,
I was thinking
I'm
that.
really curious.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Because mean, other than play the occasional game here and there, I listen to a lot of podcasts, mostly about politics and philosophy and that kind of stuff. I try to absorb knowledge when I'm not making video games about other stuff that I'm passionate about, and I'm very passionate about politics, for example. So I try to absorb a lot of stuff, a lot of knowledge as much as possible. But other than making games, I occasionally play them. Unfortunately, not as much as I wanted to. But that's that.
All right. Have you ever thought about making a podcast for your game?
A podcast for about what? What would the podcast talk about?
He does a lot of dev streams though, and I kind of consider those to be, since he does so many of them.
That would be like a pod.
It feels similar, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a way of getting your content out there about your game, a continuous stream of your content, which you already do because you stream it. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I do. I feel like to have enough content to do a podcast about the game needs to be out, and I need to be talking about this or that. So.
All right,
I can answer the question. What I do outside of gaming is like, in our Discord we have the hashtag nerd hobbies section. And,
oh shit! You have a Discord.
I do.
Wait! Is it for Prismata or is it for Lunar?
Yeah, it's Prismata Discord.
Oh, invite me. Yo, I didn't know this. What?
I'll invite you. I think if you just go discord.gg/Prismata.
Oh, you've changed my life.
Send you right there.
Yeah, he's like, yeah. I haven't. I'm sorry, I didn't invite you. Oops.
Yeah, if you could dump that in the chat,
it'll damn.
There. But it's discord.gg/Prismata. Anyways, I do a lot of, like, I used to do competitive puzzle solving, math contests, computer science contests, and I still love doing that shit. We talk about hard math problems, programming problems. I do a lot of logic puzzle composing. You could see all the stuff around me. I do play a lot of games. I do speed running. I have a couple of world records or former world records.
Oh, you do speed running?
I play. I actually had a world record for the Terran campaign in StarCraft at one point. I don't have it anymore. Somebody beat it. I still have a world record for a certain very obscure Tetris mode that nobody plays.
But that's all that matters, though. Is that
you got the record.
I love playing games of all types of different genres, not just puzzle and strategy games as sort of nerd games, but just regular old games with stories and stuff like that. I love streaming games, talking about them, criticizing them heavily about their onboarding and user experience things, because I think that's, as a game developer, how you grow your skill and your taste is by experiencing the creations of other game developers and with a critical eye and trying really hard to find the flaws in what other people are making and also what you like about people are making. I do game design as a hobby in my spare time. Like Prismata, I love working on Prismata, but at the same time, someday I'm going to make other games. And I love thinking about what types of other games I'm going to make. Every game developer has this list of dream products that they want to make, and that list grows in your spare time sometimes. It's but I don't know. I just have a lot of nerd hobbies. That's about it.
Yeah. If you guys could, kind of off topic, Juan Paulo and Elliot and Resonance, drop your Twitch channels in the chat.
Sure.
Also, my viewers who don't know your personals, because I'm not gonna lie, I do in the future. I do plan to drop by you guys' streams and hang out with you guys when you guys are, doing what you're doing. I would love to come by and check that out.
Am I gonna get banned?
Let me give
you
you.
gotta make the
guys-
limit longer than 30 seconds.
There you
we
go.
need to make it 45 or something.
Everybody's getting
for us old folks.
Destiny bits in there.
Oh, I got lopped.
You got
Destiny
did you
got
get in?
purged too.
Oh, hold on. I'm so sorry. My bots.
Hashtag free Destiny bit.
You
Come
know
on.
what? Just drop them in general, and I'll just copy and paste them in my chat. What a mess. Sorry about that, guys.
It's fine.
But if nobody has any other questions, I do want to wrap this up. It's been a long time.
Yeah, this was a long one, but yeah, this was really good.
It's been a great one, and honestly, I mean, you guys are always welcome back. Whether you want to come back and talk about your game, or whether you want to come back and talk about just games in general. Because every week I normally just have like 4 or 5 games we just dissect, talk about, and learn about, and give to our community. So if you guys ever want to come back, you guys are more welcome to come back anytime you guys want. And
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Let me grab these real quick. So I'm gonna drop you guys' in. Here's Resonance, the one and only, and I'm gonna drop Destiny bit, and definitely do check them out if you guys do have time. And we're waiting for Elliot's.
I think it's Lunark Studio.
Oh, do you want me to dump it in the Discord?
Dump it in
Discord.
And
Sorry, I already dumped it, but
it's all good. Sorry about that. I'm just gonna drop them.
Yeah, free Lunark.
Yeah.
Thanks for the pod. No problem. It's definitely a pleasure. I'm just a guy who likes to talk a lot. I like to talk a lot. I like to learn a lot. I love conversations, and I'm not gonna lie. I find myself preferring podcasts over gaming sometimes. Because it's really cool to sit down and just shoot the breeze, have some laughs, talk about gaming, something we're all passionate about. So, yeah. But there's no more questions. But I want to thank everybody for being here. Everybody, last minute, if people did just come in, Elliot, Juan Paulo, Renaissance, tell the people who you are, where they can find you, and your future plans, and voila. Elliot?
Oh wait, I just realized that I actually didn't answer the what I do in my free time thing.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I'll do all the thank you stuff after that. I'll go through this real fast. It's funny, like most people in the games industry, like once you get into it, like you don't get to play nearly as much games as you think you would because you're so busy doing so much work.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to play games like all the time, but as soon as I started working on games, it's like someone's got to fix this bug. I did QA for 2 years and then a lot of community management. I watch a lot of streams. I love to study games. I lurk in all sorts of Twitch chats and I take notes. Like I'm really diligent about that. I like to hang out with my friends, but a hobby of mine is actually game design. I actually do game design.
Come on with that hardcore racing game we all talked about.
Well, now I've got a lot of bad ideas, so you never know. But really, I just like talking. I just like talking to people, which is why I do community management. But anyway, seriously, thank you so much for hosting this podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope I also exposed a lot of new people to you and your style. This is the sick GlitchSythe experience, but imagine him at his peak.
Just my prime. I'm talking like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just not trying to cough all over the mic today, so. But yeah,
you've been doing a great job with that. Like strategic mutes and everything. I've kind of mastered that one.
Yep. But quick little rundown, guys. If you guys are coming in, Elliot is the one and only. He's creating Prismata. Juan Paulo's creating Empires Apart. Resonance is trying to take over the world. I did drop their Twitch chats in there. If you guys do want to find them in the future and you don't get that link, definitely check out my Discord. And I will definitely have a channel updating you guys about Prismata and Empires Apart. So that's the least I could do for you guys. And I'm honored to have you guys on the podcast. And, this is my first interview-based podcast, which is, a little nervous about it. Thought you guys would laugh at me, make fun of me, but thank you guys for bearing with me.
No, you did a great job.
Thank you.
No, I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to do this. Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here. John Paulo, it was such a great chance to hear your perspective. And I know you and I are sort of working on games in the same corner. And it's really interesting to hear some of the struggles that other developers are going through when they're
That's why I wanted this to type of game.
You know, it's been absolutely fascinating. Thanks to Rez for inviting me to come here, and thanks to Glitch for hosting. It was a pleasure.
No problem, no problem. But thank you guys, everybody, in chat and viewing, and in the future. Thank you guys for watching episode 14 of the GlitchSythe podcast. Our next podcast will be next Sunday, every Sunday at 3 p.m. PST. Today was Saturday because, you know, New Year's is right around the corner. I didn't want to interrupt anybody's vacation, but next podcast is next Sunday, 3 p.m. PST. If you know anybody who wants to be on the podcast, hit me up. Let me know. We'll definitely be honored to have them. But have a great night, guys. I love you guys. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in.
All right, folks.